The sky over the high cliffs was covered with dark, thick clouds, lightning flashed among them, and thunder roared. A god appeared over the edge of the cliff where the young man stood and told him that the magical kingdom was overcrowded and new participants were not accepted. Let him not be stubborn, thunder will strike and he will die. The young man waved his flaming sword, looking at the old man from under his brows, and said that he had trained hard for 300 years to ascend to immortality. No one can stop him today. This young man's name is Bai Shu. He is a tribulation practitioner. In response, God waved his hand, lightning thundered around him, and he said that he was impudent. At the same moment, Bai Shu rushed upward, cutting through the air. A bright flame lit up around him. He clenched his teeth and said that if God prevents him, he will kill the gods. After these words, he quickly rushed forward, throwing sharp fiery streams of flame at the god, which cut his head into 2 halves. Having done this, in a bright stream he swung again to strike, and said that if the heavens stopped him, he would do it. With the last swing of his sword, he screamed loudly, using all his strength, and ended up piercing the entire body of the god. At the same time, he cut through the heavens. A bright snow-white flash illuminated the heavens. The image of the god disappeared, and Lai Jian's face was illuminated by the light that came from the passage to the magical kingdom. The road to the magical kingdom opened before him, which was a bright fiery rift in the sky. Bai Shu went straight to this rift and said that he was going to the magical kingdom. After passing through the portal, he found himself in a completely different world. There were modern buildings around. He himself was sitting against the wall, and some hooligans beat him and said that he dared to steal their brother Hu's woman. Let him look. This toad wanted to try swan meat. Bai Shu was transported into the body of a young man named Lai Jian. Still not understanding where he was, he wondered, is this a magical kingdom? He did not respond to the hooligans' attacks, and one of them told him to look at himself. Maybe if he pleases him, they will let him go. Lai Jian did not answer, and the bully, indignant at this, raised his hand and shouted, "Is he dumb or what? Didn't he get enough?" Lai Jian raised his head to look at his fist and realized that there was no spiritual energy fluctuation in his body. This means that this is definitely not a magical kingdom. He stopped his fist with one of his palms and, rising to his feet, asked, "Is he finished?" The bully got nervous and thought, why the hell did he suddenly become so strong? At the same moment, Lai Jian kicked him, causing him to be thrown back and cry out in pain. The second bully looked at his defeated comrade, and then lit a blue flame in his hand and asked, does he dare to resist? But it's okay, he'll teach him a lesson. Lai Jian didn't pay attention to him. He looked at his palm and thought it was strange. He cannot use spiritual power. At the same moment, the bully attacked him and said that let him know the true power of superpowers. Lai Jian turned his gaze to him and, seeing a blue clot in his hand, asked in surprise, "Superpowers?" As soon as the guy approached him, he sharply recoiled to the side, dodging the blow. He jumped behind him and said that he may have lost his spiritual power, but with such a low level of ability, he definitely couldn't defeat him. The bully did not immediately keep up with his speed, and Lai Jian punched him in the stomach. From the blow, blood sprayed from his mouth, he screamed in pain, and then he was thrown into the wall, and from this he ricocheted into another wall. While he was flying, Lai Jian suddenly appeared in front of him and waved his leg threateningly, and after that there was a blow. After the fight, 2 hooligans sat down on their knees in front of him and said that they were wrong, let him not touch them. Lai Jian decided to spare them and said that they should get out of here quickly. After his words, they ran away, and one of them told his friend that they need to quickly tell the boss that this idiot Lai Jian may have awakened superpowers. Lai Jian heard his words and thought, Lai Jian. His name is Lai Jian. Suddenly cold sweat flowed down his face, his eyebrows frowned, and he remembered everything. There was an accident, it was raining heavily, and little Lai Jian was sitting on the cold asphalt next to the broken car and hugging the woman. What a pity he lost his parents at such a young age. The owner of this body is called Lai Jian. Even as a child, he lost his parents and was adopted by his mother's friend Liu Iran. As a child, he was constantly bullied. As a result of this shock at a young age, he developed a condition called autism, for which he became the subject of ridicule. It seems that deliberately cutting the sky did not help him rise, but on the contrary, caused him to turn into a mortal and end up in this strange world. And the power that guy used is called a superpower. Most people in this world awaken it in themselves, but the owner of this body is an exception. And he does not know whether the true owner can cultivate immortality through the body. Suddenly, a woman's call distracted him from his thoughts. Some girl ran up to him. I nervously clenched my palms into fists, and her name was Jai-sai. With a worried look, she ran to him and asked why he was being bullied again. She extended her arms towards him, using her healing ability, and told him that if he couldn't fight, then he should retreat, otherwise he would be harmed. Lai Jian remembered her. This is Jai-sai, the daughter of Lai Jian's adoptive mother. She helped him every time he was bullied, and those two mocked him because he was close to her. She continued treatment and said that her mother would be worried if she found out about it. Lai Jian thought that from the owner's memories, it seemed that every time he was injured, she used a superpower to heal him. It turns out that superpowers also have their own attributes. After the treatment, she looked at Lai Jian's smooth skin, which no longer had abrasions, and said that it's good that he wasn't scratched too much this time, otherwise with her superpowers, he would definitely have to go to the hospital for a while. Lai Jian clenched his hand into a fist and looked at his palm, thinking, could the superpower in this world be magic in his understanding? Suddenly Jai-sai looked up at him with a dissatisfied look, and then hit him on the forehead and asked why he was silent. Lai Jian was a little surprised by her actions, and then calmly asked how could ordinary mortals hurt him. She remained silent and, crossing her arms over her chest, thought, has autism become schizophrenia? Lai Jian looked at her gloomy expression and thought, is she looking down on him? Jai-sai decided to ignore his words and grabbed his hand, saying that he should forget about it, they should go home. She led him forward and said with a smile that his mother was already waiting for them. Time passed. Walking through the streets of the city, Lai Jian realized that this world was completely different from his previous one, with endless tall buildings built in a row. There is also a vehicle called a car that can easily travel hundreds of miles. And all people of different ages dress poorly, exposing their skin. Although this violates etiquette, it seems to be liberation from yet another shackles of his past world. And superpowers are the power that dominates this world. And he doesn't know the aura of this world and whether cultivators will be affected by superpowers. There is indeed a difficult path ahead to comprehend another world, but even if it is difficult, he will still achieve his long-standing desire ascension. Time passed. They came to the eastern street in area A08, where their house was located. They took the elevator to the desired floor and headed to their apartment. Jai-sai walked forward with a smile and said that they were finally home. But as soon as they reached the door, she froze in horror and asked why he was here. Lai Jian became wary and thought, who could scare her so much? A man appeared at the door to the apartment. He looked at Jai-sai with a smile and wished her good evening, calling her his daughter. His name is Jai Chengshin. He is Jai-sai's father. Jai-sai froze in the aisle and asked what he forgot here. He looked behind him and replied that he had just come to talk to her mother about something. At the same moment, Liu Yuren loudly called his name and, clenching her fists in rage, said that he should get out of here. Jai Chengshin straightened his tie and said with a slight smile that she didn't seem very happy with him. He went to the exit, skirting Jai-sai, and reached out to her with his hand, saying that she should not worry, Daddy will come to her in a couple of days. In response, she put her hand in front of her and said that she should not touch it. After that, he left the apartment and, without paying attention to Lai Jian, walked past him and said that she still couldn't get away from him. Lai Jian turned around, looking after him, and thought that Jai-sai's father had an affair, but they made peace with Liu Yuren, and in the end, Jai-sai too. But he strongly interfered and controlled the life of Liu Yuren and her daughter. However, there is no information about this in Lai Jian's memory. He turned his gaze to Jai-sai, who was crying in her mother's arms, and thought that, however, the appearance of this freak does not bode well, so he is afraid that there will be a lot of trouble in the future, so he should cultivate as quickly as possible. After this incident, he went outside, where the moon was already shining in the sky. As evening fell, the lights in the entire park turned on, and Lai Jian rubbed his face with his palm and thought, what is going on in this world? He would like to know more, but Liu Yuren and Jai-sai fell asleep while crying in each other's arms. First he needs to practice. He sat cross-legged on a nearby bench and closed his eyes, thinking that he hoped that the true owner of the body could cultivate immortality with his spiritual essence, introducing Kai into the body and feeding the human spirit with the spirit of heaven. After these words, streams of energy swirled around him, and he thought that the ancient spirit was a technique he had created in his past life. It can condense absorbed spiritual energy to make its sphere more durable. It becomes more crushing when faced with immortal cultivators of the same realm. Streams of energy entered his forehead in thin streams, and he entered the spiritual realm. He saw 3 small streams approaching his hand and thought, is the aura of this world so thin? Even with the help of ancient spiritual energy, it can only condense 3 spiritual powers. He concentrated even more, sweat flowed over his body, and he thought that Kai penetrates the muscles and veins, strengthening the will, supporting nature, and strengthening the spirit. And to achieve immortality, he needs perseverance, no matter how difficult it may be. At the same moment, his whole body seemed to be lit up with flames, his veins bulged, he clenched his teeth from tension and thought, could this feeling be that rare body that is inherent in the Tao body? After the burst of energy, he was engulfed in flames and looked at his fist and thought that the spiritual energy was so subtle that he could practice it in the blink of an eye. But he still reached the 5th level of Kai purification. An unexpected woman's cry for help distracted him from his meditation. He immediately opened his eyes and saw that the girl was running towards him, but she suddenly tripped and fell. Some guy caught up with her and said that she had nowhere else to run. Come on, let her play with her brother. In fear, she crawled back from him and shouted that he should not come. She turned sharply towards Lai Jian and, lying on the ground from powerlessness, extended a trembling hand to him and asked for help. Lai Jian remained silent. He measured her with an indifferent gaze, and the guy, approaching him, said that he should go about his business. After these words, Lai Jian turned his gaze to him and said that it turns out that there are enough idiots everywhere. These words made the guy very angry and shouted that he asked for it himself. Weak flashes of lightning danced around him, and then they sharply increased in size, and he, stretching his arms forward, directed lightning at Lai Jian, saying that today he would learn the power of 2nd-level abilities. Flashes of lightning approached Lai Jian, and he thought, is this a thunder attribute? It's time for him to try the results of today's cultivation. Without blinking an eye, he used his abilities, and at the same moment, the lightning that approached his face froze in the air. At one moment, the lightning covered the stone, and the guy, looking in surprise at his petrified hands, exclaimed, did his thunder and lightning not hurt him? It turns out that he has abilities higher than him. Lai Jian jumped off the bench and raised his hand, replying that only imbeciles who were not far-sighted would focus on the so-called levels. The guy was very frightened. Realizing that the stranger in front of him was stronger, he backed away, inviting him to discuss everything. But Lai Jian did not listen. He punched him in the stomach, causing him to scream in pain. After that, the guy fell on his back, drooling from his mouth, and Lai Jian said that you can't get rid of everything with superpowers. Suddenly, he felt something. He turned around and saw the girl standing behind him and clinging to him, squeezing him tightly in her arms. With a slight blush on her face, she brought her face close to his t-shirt and sniffed it, and after that, she looked up at Lai Jian with a smile and said that he smelled nice. Lai Jian realized that something was wrong with her and thought that her blood circulation was high, and that someone had probably drugged her with substances. Immediately after that, he turned his whole body towards her, pulling her towards him by the hand, and apologized in advance. He extended 2 fingers forward, collecting energy in them, and then lightly poked his fingers at different points on the girl's body. From this, she involuntarily gasped, and her face flushed even more, and after that she felt relief. Her breathing quickened, and she, gasping for air, said that this was so great. After that, she lost consciousness and lay on his arm, and he thought that the substances had dissolved, so after a cup of tea she should wake up. At the same moment, a man came out from somewhere, in a rage, lighting a flame in his hand, and said that he should move away from his sister. This guy who walks towards Lai Jian, threateningly lighting a flame in his hands, is called Gu Tianju. He has the 3rd level of ability. Lai Jian frowned slightly and thought, another superpower. At that same second, Gu Tianju increased his speed and attacked Lai Jian, shouting that he would kill him. Realizing his bad intentions, Lai Jian threw the girl onto the bench, and then dodged her brother's blow and said that it was too slow. Although his cultivation level is not higher than the 5th level of Kai refinement, he does not need any magic. He grabbed Gu Tianju's hand, which he clearly did not expect, and then threw him into a tree and said that to cope with them, who have a low level of superpowers, this will be enough. After hitting the tree, Gu Tianju fell on his stomach to the ground, and Lai Jian, approaching him, put his foot on his head. Gu Tianju looked up at him and thought that he was too fast. He couldn't block his blows at all. Is he really from a higher academy? Looking at him, he saw Lai Jian's gloomy gaze above him and asked in a cold and threatening voice, Did he just say that he wanted to kill him? Gu Chonju, with trembling arms and legs, began to slowly get up and said that he could humiliate him, but let him not dare to touch his sister. While he was saying these words, his whole body burst into flames, smoke came out of his mouth, and Lai Jian, noticing this, thought, does he want to use some kind of technique? Immediately after this, the entire area was illuminated by a bright flash of flame, and Lai Jian had to quickly retreat back. Standing in the middle of this bright flash, Gu Chunju said that he may not have mastered this technique yet, but his strength is enough to cope with it. After these words, he threw several fiery balls at Lai Jian, and he, having built a protective dome around himself, thought that the barrier field of the inherent Tao body could weaken all blows in a certain range. So flames of this level will not get close to him. Heat began to emanate from Gu Chunju's body. He caught his breath and thought that his flames were taking him. So his superpower is the earth element. No, he doesn't seem to have any abilities at all. All the fiery flash around dissipated, and he asked who the hell he was. Lai Jian replied that he had better think about himself. His blood is boiling, and his heart can no longer stand it. He's about to blow himself up. As soon as he said this, Gu Qianju's body was pierced by severe pain. He fell to one knee. His whole body seemed to be burning from the inside. Looking at his suffering, Lai Jian decided to approach him with 2 fingers extended forward, and Gu Qianju asked what he wants to do again. Instead of answering, Lai Jian swung his hand and then hit several points on his body with his fingers, causing him to scream. Lai Jian walked away from him and asked if he was feeling better. Gu Qianju's body went cold. He felt it and looked up and asked, is he saving him? Lai Jian closed his eyes and replied that he simply misunderstood everything. He wanted to protect his sister. He had no intention of killing him. At that same moment, the girl who had recently been sleeping slowly opened her eyes and, seeing her brother in front of her, asked what he was doing here. Lai Jian turned around and said that she had finally woken up. She stood up from the bench and walked towards them, thanking Lai Jian for saving her. Her brother asked in surprise, so did he have anything to do with it? Was he the one who saved her? She answered with a smile that something had been slipped into her drink, and some man was pestering her, and this young man helped her. Because of her words, Gu Qianju seemed to shudder and realized that he had been mistaken all this time. He awkwardly scratched the back of his head and asked Lai Jian for forgiveness. He made a little mistake. After that, Lai Jian decided to go back home and said that since all the misunderstandings were resolved, he would go. An old man and his subordinates in business suits appeared on his way. He laughed and said that since it was a misunderstanding, they could just talk it out. Lai Jian stopped and asked, who else is he? The old man in the wheelchair looked down and said that he was their grandfather, Gu Wen. He smiled and said that if it weren't for the help of their little friend, his dear grandson would have exploded right now. Could he invite him into his humble home and repay him for his help? Lai Jian walked past him with an indifferent look and said that he didn't need it. Gu Wen looked after him and said that although he is a researcher of superpowers, he is also well aware of the secrets of ancient monuments. Their friend had just suppressed his grandson's abilities with his bare hands. His abilities are incredibly high. His physical strength is similar to what he read about in books. He wonders where he learned this. Lai Jian remained silent and thought that there was absolutely no spiritual power fluctuation around this old man, and he was also sick. But it seems he can sense changes in his spiritual power, and it is quite difficult. He continued on his way and replied that it did not matter. Gu Wen watched him go, and after that his grandchildren came up to him and Gu Chanju asked who this is. His body and strength are quite extraordinary. His sister smiled and asked, is this strange? But she still thinks he's cute. He stopped her brother's self-destruction so easily, and maybe he could cure her grandfather's leg problem. Gu Wen's face darkened, and he said that no one should talk about what happened. He turned to his grandson and said that he should get information about him. He wants to find him. He thought that if he was truly legendary, then his Gu family would prosper. Time has passed. Liu Yuren knocked on Lai Jian's room and then walked inside and handed him some clothes, saying that school was starting today, so she prepared a new uniform for him. Lai Jian accepted the form from her hands with a smile and thanked her. Hearing this, Jai Sai ran into the room and asked, what is this sudden politeness? He's very strange today. She hugged her mother and said that her mother specially selected this for him, and her 3 months' salary was spent on this. Her mother never even bought her such expensive things. Lai Jian looked down at his new uniform and thought, their family does not live richly, but at the same time they can spend 3 months' salary on buying a new suit. It seems that Lai Jian is truly a full-fledged member of the family. Liu Iran started tickling her daughter and said displeasedly that she constantly buys her all sorts of crap. From the slight tickling, laughter rose up in Jai Sai's throat, and through tears and laughter she said that let him go and try it on, and then show himself to them. The mother and daughter both laughed, and Lai Jian looked at them and thought that they were treating him so well. He must take upon himself the protection of this family. Time passed, and they went to the university. Yajun University is an international aristocratic college with first-class teaching staff and rich or noble students where most of the teachers and students have superpowers. As Lai Jian walked past the students in their new uniforms, he began to hear whispers around him. The girls blushed when they saw him, and one of them said that she had never paid any attention to the fact that that idiot from the parallel class was so handsome. Another girl asked, "Is that handsome guy Lai Jian?" Jai Sai, who was walking under Lai Jian's arm, smiled and told him that a man relies on clothes and a horse relies on the saddle. He looks much nicer in clothes. After passing several more students, they heard someone discussing them. One of the guys said that Lai Jian came there. His friend asked if he wasn't narrow-minded. Now, if he hadn't said it, he wouldn't have noticed. And this is their school beauty, Jai Sai. If this idiot can sleep with her, he will be completely shocked. Lai Jian heard their words and thought that Lai Jian originally had no power at all, but with Jai Sai's help, he had the opportunity to attend college and even become an auditor. But he never thought that because of his illness he would become an object of ridicule for those children. Suddenly, hooligans blocked their way. One of the guys came forward and asked, "Is this their fool here?" Seeing them, Jai Sai immediately became nervous and pulled Lai Jian by the hand, saying that they needed to leave. There was no need to run into them again. Chen Hu, along with his hooligan friends, began to approach them, and he said that he should not think that if he dressed normally, they would treat him like a normal person. They started laughing among themselves, and Lai Jian thought that Chen Hu was quite a rich and influential person in this school. Due to his unsuccessful attempts to get close to Jai Sai, he often pestered the real Lai Jian for being close to her. After that, Chen Hu walked up to Lai Jian and grabbed him by the clothes, saying that it was time to settle the score. Jai Sai became very worried and asked him not to do this. Lai Jian's face darkened, and he told the offender that he should quickly take his dirty hands off him. Without waiting for this, he grabbed his hand tightly and said with a threatening look that he had told him to remove his hand. He squeezed his hand with such force that it turned blue, and Chen Hu trembled in pain, shouting that he was in pain. Other students who stood nearby said that this idiot did not value life at all. How dare he touch Brother Hu? He has a level 5 ability, so now there will be quite a show. At this time, Jai Sai looked at Lai Jian in surprise and thought that this was strange. Why did Lai Jian become so strong? Lai Jian thought about the abilities of the 5th level. The cultivation system is divided into 8 levels. The initial level of ability is divided into 9 levels, the rest into 3 stages: high, medium, and low. The first level is the ability to purify Kai. Then the manipulator is the foundation of Kai, the challenger is the creation of foundations, the conqueror is the origin of the soul, the holder of absolute power is deification, the arbiter of justice is the return to absolute emptiness, the threshold is harmony, the ruler is the incomparable god of war, the murder of death is the triumph of immortality. The abilities of the 5th level are equivalent to the 5th level of Kai refining cultivation. However, he does not know how strong the abilities at this level are. Chen Hu's friends helped him stand on his feet, and he exclaimed, "Why did this paralytic become so strong?" His friend replied that perhaps this fool had awakened his superpowers. He beat them up pretty good last time, let him be more careful. Chen Hu gritted his teeth and exclaimed that a fool who awakened abilities is still a fool. If he dares to joke with him, he will kill him. After these words, he waved his hand, giving his friends a sign to act, and they rushed to the attack, agreeing with his words. Seeing this, Jai Sai came to Lai Jian's defense. She covered him with her body and exclaimed that they were at the university. What do they allow themselves? One of the hooligans clenched his hand into a fist and decided to hit her, saying that Brother Hu's father is one of the managers of the university, so he himself is in charge here. Jai Sai closed her eyes, preparing to take the blow, but at the same moment Lai Jian grabbed her by the waist and pulled her towards him so that she could dodge the blow. As soon as she pressed herself against him, she looked up at him in surprise, and at the same moment Lai Jian swung his leg and dealt a crushing blow. The bully coughed in pain and retreated, and meanwhile Jai Sai continued to look at Lai Jian in surprise and think, where does he have so much strength? Perhaps Chen, who is right, and Lai Jian really awakened his superpowers? But suddenly something in her gaze changed. Her eyes opened even wider, and she warned Lai Jian about the danger. At that very moment, a second bully appeared behind him. He gathered strength in his hand and said that he had awakened the crystalline energy just yesterday, so now he would paint his face. Lai Jian immediately turned around to strike, but there was no trace of the bully, as if he had disappeared into thin air. But at the same moment, he suddenly moved behind him and said that he was here. Lai Jian turned around and thought it was interesting that the method of using the wind to move was similar to the initial skill of controlling the wind. It's a pity that it's only superficial. With this thought, he sharply turned around with his whole body, raised his palm, and the bully got scared, realizing that he would not be able to dodge. Lai Jian hit him in the face, causing him to be thrown back towards the rest of the hooligans. Chen, who realized that his charges could not cope and decided to attack Lai Jian himself, saying that they were two morons, it would be better for him to do everything himself. He gathered a bright flash in his hand and shouted that it was a shining blow. From this bright flash, Jai Sai closed her eyes, and Chen, who, approaching Lai Jian, thought that as the young master of Wanjin, he had already awakened superpowers here. Now he can use a shining strike, which is much stronger in power than a strike of the same level. Fighting a brainless person like him who has just awakened the power is as easy as crushing an ant. But contrary to his thoughts, his fist froze just a few centimeters from Lai Jian's face. He extended his index finger forward, stopping Chen, who, and his whole body trembled in fear. He involuntarily backed away and thought, how does he do this? Why did this idiot's aura suddenly become so strong? Out of terrible fear of his power, he fell to the ground and said that it was impossible. Only level 6 abilities can stop his shining strike. But he only awakened his abilities. Lai Jian slowly walked towards him and replied that it was just an experience. He frowned and thought that level 5 superpowers were rather disappointing. He promised to protect this family. Creatures like him should know their place. His shadow covered Chen, who and he, lying on the ground trembling with fear, asked what he wanted to do. He knows who he is. In response, Lai Jian stretched his wrist and told him to listen to him from now on. Let him watch his words and actions. After that, there were several blows and a deafening scream from Chen, which was caused by severe pain. Students crowded around them, and someone said that brother who had come from such a fool. Such a shame. Another student said that Chen, who had been walking around threateningly all day, finally he was taught a lesson. Another student asked, is Lai Jian serious? When did he change so much? Another student told him to be quiet. This fool today, by the way, is still a handsome man. Poor Chen, who lay on the ground with a torn t-shirt, a knocked-out tooth, and a couple of bruises on his face, and he also cried and listened to all this. Jai Sai ran up to Lai Jian, who was standing next to his offender, and said that he really received his superpowers. She hugged his arm and said that she was so glad that now he could fight back. Out of happiness for him, she kissed him on the cheek, leaving a lipstick mark on his skin, and the always calm Lai Jian even became a little embarrassed. Time has passed. In one of the bars, dancers twirled on pylons to loud beats of music, attracting spectators. One of the hooligans came to this bar to his boss and reported to him about everything that happened at the university. The man lit a cigar and asked, did they teach that fool a lesson? The bully trembled with fear and confirmed his words, and after that the man took another puff of smoke and said that it was such a pity. He pointed his cigar at the bully and asked, if Chen who failed, then what is the point of losers like him? The bully trembled even more with fear because he was standing in front of Mr. Wanjin himself, Chen Zhao. He asked for mercy and Chen Zhao just grinned. He gathered his strength around himself and then enveloped the bully in these blue streams and put out his cigar on his forehead. From severe pain, he opened his mouth in a silent scream. Due to an overabundance of superpowers, his body was charred and he fell unconscious to the floor. Chen Zhao calmly turned to his subordinate and said that his son was the only one who could humiliate someone. However, now they have humiliated him, so let him go and find out what happened. The ideologist of superpowers, Ren Wukong, bowed to his master and said that he should leave the young master's problem to him. Chen Zhao lit a cigarette again and told him not to overwork himself. He let him personally experience the consequences of Wanjin's provocation. Meanwhile, Jai Sai and Lai Jian were walking home, and she, pointing her finger at him, said that although Chen who deserves punishment, he is too cruel. His family is quite powerful. What if he gets into trouble? Lai Jian remained silent, and remembering how he sat in class, he thought that the place called the university contained much more spiritual energy than other places. With the double blessing of the ancient spirit and the true Tao body, he was able to reach the 7th level of Kai refining in less than a month. If he focused on this, he could easily reach the 9th level of Kai refinement. Jai Sai noticed that he was lost in thought and tapped him on the shoulder, asking why he froze. Is he even listening to her? He replied that he was just wondering, this is a cool place. Jai Sai was very surprised by his words and thought that this was the end. His condition was getting worse. They walked further, and when they passed by a glass building, Lai Jian suddenly noticed something behind the glass and his face took on a worried look for a second. A second later, the glass burst, fragments scattered everywhere, but Lai Jian was already prepared for this. He quickly pulled Jai Sai towards him, and then extended his arm forward, using his strength, and protected other passers-by from the sharp glass fragments. From his strength, they all rose into the air, avoiding collision with the fragments, and after that, Lai Jian released them and told them to run away. All the people immediately ran away in panic in different directions, and Jai Sai, clinging to Lai Jian, asked what happened. She noticed a wound on his cheek and said with excitement that he had a wound on his face. He wiped the blood with his finger and replied that he was fine. After that, he looked at his bloody finger and thought that dispersing spiritual energy to protect others allowed this attack to break through the true Tao body. A man came out of the destroyed building towards them. He walked over the shards of glass that he had just knocked out and, stopping a few meters from them, said that this was interesting, very interesting. A man with newly awakened superpowers was able to repel his attack. This man was Ren Wukong. Lai Jian covered Jai Sai with his hand and asked who did he come from. Jai Sai pulled him by the hand and told him not to waste time on him. He is still a manipulator, let him better run away. Lai Jian took a closer look at him and thought that with an aura comparable to the 9th level of Kai refinement, he had finally found a worthy opponent. Ren Wukong spread his hands to the side and asked with a smile, is he pretending to be like this, or is he really a fool? Let him think carefully about whether he touched anything that shouldn't have been touched. Although the master asked him to be more careful, he definitely does not intend to hold back. Having said these words, he lit a pink flame in his hand, and at that moment Lai Jian was twisted by an unknown force. He slowly rose into the air and Jai Sai called out to him worriedly. Lai Jian maintained a calm appearance even while chained and suspended in the air, and thought that this was a familiar technique. A second later, this force pulled him to the side and hit the nearest wall with such force that pieces of the wall scattered everywhere. Ren Wukong went completely mad and with a wide smile sent him to hell, and after that he collected all the fragments of the wall using his power and sent them straight to Lai Jian. Jai Sai called out to him, and at the same moment, pieces of the wall fell with a roar into the place where Lai Jian was. From the impact of many concrete pieces from each other, strong dust rose, and Jai Sai, looking at this pile of rubble with tears in her eyes, began to cry and called Ren Wukong an idiot. He killed him. He walked towards her with an imposing gait and, closing his eyes, told her not to scream. Although the master doesn't need it, he doesn't mind feeling more blood on his hands. For some reason, he decided to turn around, and for good reason, because at that very moment Lai Jian jumped out from under a pile of rubble, clutching the rebar in his hand. He rushed to him and said that this was an interesting handwriting. Ren Wukong froze in shock and said that he was alive. But how is this possible? He extended his hand forward, using his superpower, and shouted, what kind of superpower did he awaken? Lai Jian did not answer him and closed his eyes to concentrate. After that, he sharply opened his eyes, and everything that had previously been hidden from view appeared before him. He saw Ren Wukong's true superpower, huge bony arms emanating from him that reached out to him, trying to grab him from both sides. After looking at this, Lai Jian thought that there were disciples in the Tiantong group who used these techniques. They spread with the sky and attacked with the power of Kai. Then they were considered strong. One of Lai Jian's eyes flashed red, and he looked at his opponent with a fierce gaze and said that if he used his old tricks again, he would not be able to harm him. Immediately after that, Lai Jian rushed down and Ren Wukong was pinned to the ground by his force, and his bony arms crumbled. He spat out blood and shouted that it was impossible. How did he defeat his shadowless one? He spread his legs wider to stand in a more stable stance and, illuminating himself with pink flames, said that let him attack again. He stretched his arms up, gathering the pieces of the building again and aimed them at Lai Jian, who was flying towards him. As soon as these debris approached him, he used the Lingyu 4 type sword technique. All the debris of the building immediately crumbled into several more small fragments from Lai Jian's numerous blows, thereby clearing the way for himself to his opponent. Ren Wukong raised his head in shock, looking at Lai Jian and seeing his true form, which was pointing a sword engulfed in flames at him. He wondered, are these swords? Out of shock, he continued to stand in place, and at the same moment, Lai Jian struck, raising a cloud of dust behind him. Blood sprayed from Ren Wukong's mouth, and, falling on his back, he thought that he had been defeated by an idiot who had just awakened his powers. Lai Jian turned around, putting the armature behind his back like a sword, and said that he has good skills, but does not know how to cultivate his body. This is the reason for his loss. Ren Wukong lay on the ground, looking at the sky, and only coughed in response. Lai Jian suddenly realized that he was putting the reinforcement behind his back like a sword and awkwardly closed his eyes, thinking that this world was not like the world of immortality that he knew before. Jai Sai immediately ran up to him and asked if he was okay. He hastened to throw the reinforcement aside and replied that such weaklings could not hurt him. In response, she exclaimed, "Is he also having fun?" He scared her to death. Ren Wukong rolled over onto his stomach and crawled forward, saying that this was not the end. If they offend Wanjin, the master will definitely make their lives hell. Jai Sai looked at him worriedly and asked Lai Jian, "They won't provoke any influential people." Suddenly a question came from somewhere, Wanjin. "What kind of gang is this?" Lai Jian and Jai Sai turned towards the direction of the voice and saw the representatives of the Gu family there. Gu Chanju put his hands in his pocket and said that he would like to see who dares to touch his Gu family. His sister and a couple of security guards also arrived at the scene with him. Ren Wukong spat out blood and exclaimed in surprise, "Gu family." Noticing Lai Jian, Sister Gu Chanju ran to him and hugged him, saying that he was her hero. He made them look for them quite well. Jai Sai, standing aside, darkened with jealousy at the sight of this picture. The girl pressed herself even closer to Lai Jian and said that this is really her hero, he always smells so nice. Lai Jian was a little surprised by this and thought, are these the brother and sister he saved that time? But what are they doing here? Jai Sai's patience ran out, and she asked displeasedly, "Who is it?" The girl who was still hugging Lai Jian's shoulder greeted her and said that her name was Gu Tianren. She was this hero's friend. Jai Sai frowned and, without hiding her dislike, asked why she didn't know about this sweet friend of his. He replied that he did not know them. After that, he pushed Gu Tianren away from you and told her to leave him alone. Gu Tianren was a little upset and said that there was no need to do that. Her brother called her over and then hugged her and told her to stop pestering him. He bowed to Lai Jian and said that he is naive and uneducated, so he hopes he doesn't mind. Meanwhile, Ren Wukong was still in shock. With his eyes and mouth wide open, he looked at the Gu family and thought that their family is very famous. Its influence extends to many fields, including military, economic, political, and scientific. They are unmatched in Kanking City. Even the local inspectors in charge of the law must coordinate with the Gu family. Wanjin is no match for them. Does this family that runs everything seriously respect Lai Jian? Lai Jian acted so dismissively, as if he didn't care about the Gu family at all. Because of all these thoughts that were spinning in his head, he could not restrain himself and screamed out loud that this could not be. Lai Jian paid attention to him and turned around and asked, "Has he calmed down yet? Does he still want to fight?" Ren Wukong suddenly called him master and gave him several low blows, hitting his forehead on the ground, and said that let him spare him. He did all this unintentionally. It was all Chen Zio, he was just following orders. So he asks him to understand him. Lai Jian thought, Chen Zio. Chen whose father? He did not expect that their personal squabbles would lead to the use of his family's power. Hearing Chen Zio's name, Gu Changju decided to intervene and said that he used to be just a little dog that was raised by Uncle Lian. After leaving the Gu family, in order to earn money, he decided to gather some kind of gang. Why would he even believe him? Let him leave it to him. It was time to learn from their mistakes regarding their family's dear guest. Lai Jian replied that in that case, he would leave it to them. He turned to Ren Wukong again and said that if he persecutes him or Jai Sai in the future, then let him be willing to answer for it. Ren Wukong immediately got up from the ground and ran away, saying that he understood him. After that, Jai Sai walked up to Lai Jian and quietly asked what was going on. Are they really from the powerful Gu family? Lai Jian looked at them and replied that this was probably the case. He noticed that they were looking at him intently and asked what was wrong. Gu Tianju folded his hands in front again in a respectful gesture and replied that they were about that situation. He would like to invite him to Gu's house to express his gratitude to him. Lai Jian turned away from them and said that he did not need this. The Gu family is so powerful that he could not have done anything that day. Nothing would have happened to Gu Tianren like that. They started to leave and Gu Tianju, extending his hand towards him, excitedly asked him to wait and think about his proposal. Gu Tianren ran up to him and, placing her palms together, asked him to come with them, or her grandfather would scold. As soon as she approached him, Lai Jian turned his gaze to her and seemed to feel something. He pulled her towards him by the waist, and thought that although her breathing was very faint, it was quite obvious. Gu Tianren was a little surprised and called out to him, and then became embarrassed and raised her hand to her chest and asked what he wants to do. Lai Jian's gaze was drawn to her chest, where the pendant hung. He decided to check what it was and reached out to her with his hand, and as soon as he approached Gu Tianren, she became even more embarrassed and asked him not to touch her. Jai Sai, meanwhile, froze in shock at the sight of her close friend reaching for the chest of a girl she didn't know, and couldn't find the words to say anything. And Gu Tianju, on the contrary, began to smile and asked, even he cannot resist worldly temptations? After that, Lai Jian still took off the gem pendant from Gu Tianren and thought that this was it, the treasure of the earth. Seeing this, Gu Tianju was slightly disappointed and, raising his hand to his forehead, said that he was just holding it and he was making it up to himself. Jai Sai said that it looked like he was sick again and suddenly became sharply interested in some strange small stones. Gu Tianren told Lai Jian that this is her grandfather's ancient collection. It drives away evil spirits and nourishes the soul. If her hero is interested in this, then she asks him to come to their home. Her grandfather has many treasures. Lai Jian thought that her grandfather probably really knew what immortality cultivation was, and it would definitely not hurt him to obtain heavenly treasures that could help him. So he better go and check. After that, he still agreed to come to their home, and after a while they found themselves at the gates of the Gu estate. They got out of the car and headed towards a huge estate, in the courtyard of which there was a beautiful fountain. Having walked through the territory, and then through the house itself, they came to the dining room, where Gu Wen was already waiting for them. Jai Sai looked at the table covered with various delicacies with admiration and thought, what kind of luxury is this? Do these nobles really have any special rules of etiquette? Gu Wen smiled and told Lai Jian that this dear friend had gone to great lengths to make his home shine. He pointed his palm towards the chairs and asked everyone to sit down. Lai Jian did not listen to him and decided to get straight to the point. He took out the pendant and asked where he got this thing from. Gu Wen did not answer immediately. He frowned and only after a short pause said that he had a huge collection of these old and dilapidated things. Is it really something special that it caught his attention? Lai Jian said that since he has a huge collection of these things, he should know what is so special about them. Jai Sai began to get angry, not understanding what they weren't talking about, and thought, what are they even talking about? Can he speak humanly? Gu Wen laughed when he heard Lai Jian's words and said that he seemed to be knowledgeable about antiques. Would he like to evaluate the entire collection? Lai Jian agreed, and Gu Wen, leaving the table in a wheelchair, told his grandchildren that they should take care of Miss Sai for now. After that, he turned to Lai Jian and said that he should follow him. Jai Sai became worried and asked Lai Jian where he was going. Gu Tianju smiled and told her not to worry, their grandfather would not touch him. After that, they both entered the elevator, and Lai Jian thought that if this old man is not lying, then he is afraid. There are too many magical treasures in this world for immortality cultivators. But these magical treasures are clearly not created by superpowers. Where are they from then? A few minutes later, they descended to the underground 4th floor, and the elevator doors opened. Gu Wen was the first to leave the elevator and asked Lai Jian to follow him. They went out into a small hall, in the middle of which there were huge doors with patterned handles. Lai Jian took a closer look at this pattern and felt some familiar aura emanating from behind the doors. He prepared to see what it was and thought it was interesting. After that, they entered a long hall that was filled with display cases and shelves with antiques. While they were walking from one end of the hall to the other, Gu Wen felt sick and coughed into his handkerchief. Lai Jian paid attention to him and asked what was wrong with him. Gu Wen looked at the bloody handkerchief and said that this is an old habit, don't let him worry. They finally reached the end of the hall where there were ancient books, boxes, and everything else, and Gu Wen said that here they are. His entire collection is here, so let him have a look. Lai Jian walked past the magical artifacts and thought that with such reserves of magical treasures, there should be many immortality cultivars in this world. But then why is there not a trace left of them? Although there are also weak superpowers that cannot be flaunted. After looking at several artifacts, he told the old man that of course he had a lot of things, but the quality left much to be desired. There are only little things here that can only interest a practitioner at the foundation stage of Kai. Gu Wen was a little taken aback by his words and thought that he had spent so much effort and energy on these treasures, but they did not attract his attention at all. He is the one he needs. He put his finger on the button on the wheelchair and said that he couldn't please his children, and he was quite ashamed of it. He went to the display case, inside of which there was a ring on a red pillow, and said that he still had one thing that, unfortunately, he did not know how to use. So he wonders if his dear friend can figure it out. Lai Jian looked closely at the display case and saw inside a golden patterned ring with a red stone in the middle. He felt the aura again and realized that the aura he felt earlier turned out to be coming from this ring. Gu Wen said that this is a cursed ring. The peculiarity of it lies precisely in the name. Anyone who touches this ring will go crazy. And in the worst case, he will simply burn alive from the black flame escaping from within. Lai Jian looked at him and thought, is he checking him? He closed his eyes and, stretching out his hand to the display case, said that this was not a curse at all, but wuju. As soon as he uttered this word, the ring instantly broke through the glass of the display case and headed towards him. Gu Wen was very surprised by this and thought, so does he know the true name of the ring? The ring itself flew into Lai Jian's outstretched fingers and a flash of black flame flared up around his hand. Immediately after this, the flame increased in size and began to circle around the room, gathering around the ring. Gu Wen was frightened and, putting up protection from the black flames in front of him, he called out to him with concern and asked him to wait. But what he saw a second later shocked him even more. Lai Jian calmly looked at the ring on his finger, and the black flames gathered around his body, but did not cause any harm. Then Gu Wen realized that the flames did not touch him at all. He looked at Lai Jian in fascination and thought that he was really the one he had been waiting for. At this time, Lai Jian kept looking at the ring and thought that the wuju ring is not a treasure at all, but it helps him a lot. Although he will have to work hard, he must use it to his advantage. He closed his eyes to concentrate and entered the spiritual space inside the ancient ring. As soon as he entered, a different view immediately appeared before him. He stood on the hot ground, smoke was floating around and pieces of ash were flying. Feeling someone's presence, he decided to turn around and saw a three-headed dog, a hellhound, approaching him with a menacing grin. Lai Jian remembered how the fair-haired spellcaster fought with this dog and thought that in his past life, the master tried his best to pacify the three-headed dog from hell. But he did not expect that he would meet him after being reborn in another world. It's a pity that his cultivation has already been exhausted and only a part of his soul remains. While he was thinking about this, the hound roared, emitting black flames from its three mouths, which rushed towards Lai Jian at high speed. He erected a protective dome around himself and thought, is the dog angry? A wild dog who has lost his body dares to use spiritual consciousness against him. Seeing that this attack did not work, the hound decided to pounce on Lai Jian, releasing its sharp claws. Looking at the huge dog above him, Lai Jian asked how his consciousness could be compared with the consciousness of some beast. His eyebrows lowered menacingly, his eyes sparkled, and he ordered the hound to sit down. The huge dog was immediately pressed to the ground, forcing him to bow before Lai Jian, but not wanting to obey, the hound began to resist and slowly rise while howling heart-rendingly. Behind Lai Jian, a formidable figure appeared, which alone inspired wild fear, and Lai Jian, shrouded in streams of black flame, took a step towards the hound and told him to sit down and obey him. The hound looked up at the creature that was behind him, and wild horror was reflected in all three pairs of the dog's eyes. The dog squealed in fear and then sharply decreased in size, appearing before Lai Jian in the guise of a small, harmless puppy. Lai Jian picked up the dog by the scruff of the neck and told him to remember, now he is his master. If he dares to be disobedient, he will simply crush his soul. At his words, the three-headed hound did not dare to move. lest it anger its owner. After that, he walked out of the inner realm of the ring and thought that although the Hellhound only had a soul left, he could use the Wuju ring to create a physical body for himself with the same level of cultivation as his master. If he is strong, then the hound will be even stronger. The dog will definitely be useful to him in the future. Gu Wen became very happy and told Lai Jian that he was indeed the person he was looking for. He and his entire Gu family are very happy. Suddenly his joy disappeared in an instant. In another fit of coughing, blood sprayed out of his mouth, and no emotion flashed on Lai Jian's face. He calmly looked at the old man, who was slumped in the chair, and the button on the armrest began to blink in a mechanical voice warning of instability. Attention, attention, vital signs are unstable, medical attention is urgently required. This message was repeated several more times, and Lai Jian, looking at Gu Wen, who was sitting and not moving, decided to touch his wrist to feel all the flows inside his body. He saw what was happening to him and thought that the long-term illness and accumulation of illness in the 5 meridians was definitely Hengsen Gen's poison. Interestingly, despite the power of the Gu family, someone still dared to poison the head. He lit a blue flame in his hand and thought that all this did not concern him at all, but today luck was on his side. In gratitude for Wuju's ring, he will save his life. He had already extended his hand to him to heal him, but at that very moment, the son of the head ran into the hall along with the doctor and called out to him in concern. He saw Lai Jian standing next to his father and, calling him an idiot, said that he should quickly move away from him. Lai Jian remained standing in place. The doctor began to check Gu Wen's condition, and his son looked up at Lai Jian with a look full of rage and asked what he did to him. Lai Jian calmly replied that he was saving his life. The man got even more angry and exclaimed, "Does he think he's completely stupid?" It is obvious that he wanted to harm the elderly man. Lai Jian began to get angry. Black flames began to emanate from his ring, and in his thoughts he called his son Gu Wen an ignorant idiot. Having heard about Gu Wen's poor condition, his grandchildren also came down to the hall and asked what happened to grandfather. Why is he arguing with the master? Then the man asked how they can call some brat a master. Is the old man so stupid that he believed this charlatan? Gu Chanju replied to his uncle that he was really a good person. He must have misunderstood something. The man turned his gaze back to Lai Jian and said that he believed what he saw more. His father is more important right now, but he will take care of him as soon as he recovers. In response, Lai Jian grinned and wondered how he was going to treat his illness. The head son turned to Dr. Andrew, with whom he had come, and asked him to act. Drops of water danced in Andrew's hand, and he replied that he would do everything he could. After that, he used his healing superpower hydrotherapy. The streams of water that appeared from the small drops in his hand began to spread around. Then he extended his hand towards Gu Wen, and his entire body was enveloped in water. Lai Jian looked at this treatment and thought that manipulating the water in the body to treat internal injuries is called water healing. But the poison has already penetrated into the heart, so it's all useless. After this treatment, Gu Wen became even worse. He coughed up blood again, and his family members called out to him in concern and froze in place, unable to help him. Dr. Andrew stepped back and apologized to Mr. Gu, saying that the symptoms were too strange, his abilities would not help. Let them make better preparations for his funeral. Tears appeared in Gu Tianren's eyes. She immediately ran to her grandfather and said that he would be fine. His son's face darkened, and he told the doctor that it was not his fault. After that, he turned to Lai Jian in a rage, pointed his finger at him, and shouted that it was all this brat's fault. He must have done something to it while they were gone. Gu Tianren asked him to stop. Since the doctor couldn't do anything, then let the master try. She wants to save her grandfather. Her uncle shouted in response that this scoundrel had harmed her grandfather. How dare she let him even touch him? He is against it. Meanwhile, Lai Jian crossed his arms and said that if he continues to waste time, then nothing will help his father. In response, the man shouted that he was too self-confident. He has no right to say anything here. Mr. Andrew is the main healer of the city. He has never let them down. Now it's all because he did something to their old man. Lai Jian calmly replied that he had already prevented him from saving his father several times. He actually doubts his medical skills. His eyes narrowed a little, and he asked with a slight smirk, or does he have some ulterior motives, and now he is just deliberately stalling for time? The man clenched his teeth, unable to find words to answer. A drop of cold sweat ran down his temple, and after that he abruptly waved his hand and asked, does he still dare to argue? He called the guards and told them to quickly arrest the killer. Two men from the guard immediately ran to Lai Jian to carry out the order, and meanwhile he raised his hand and thought that they were just a bunch of idiots. After that he snapped his fingers and told the hound to come out and play with them. Immediately after these words, black flames flashed in the hall, and a three-headed hellhound appeared behind Lai Jian in its terrifying appearance and roared. The guards immediately froze in place, and one of them nervously asked, "Is this a superpower of summoning? What a horror." Another guard asked worriedly how such a creature could even exist. At this time, Gu Tianju looked at the summoned creature with a fascinated gaze and thought that he could not even reach the level of summoning a beast. Their savior is truly unrivaled. Who is he anyway? Out of fear of the huge hound and its red ominous eyes, Gu Wen's son fell to the floor in horror and asked in a trembling voice who he was. Lai Jian looked at him coldly and said that he had better become more polite, otherwise he would not be able to cope with the consequences. After everything was resolved, Lai Jian was allowed to begin treatment. He walked up to the old man and thought that after a while his condition worsened due to lack of blood and Kai, but this was not a problem for him. As long as the actual unreal conditions are combined and the meridians are stimulated, toxins can be eliminated from the body. He made several smooth movements with his hand, using freezing, and streams of light energy swirled around him. After that, several needles filled with this energy appeared between his palms, and then he raised these needles above the old man's body, swinging his arms to the sides. Gu Tianju watched him and asked what he was doing. Gu Tianren said admiringly that her hero was simply incredible. Their uncle crossed his arms over his chest with a smirk, expecting Lai Jian to fail, and said that if the head cannot be cured, then he even wonders what he can do. At this time, Lai Jian waved his hand once again, this time pointing the needles directly at Gu Wen. All the needles stuck into different points on his body at once, causing him to wrinkle his eyebrows, enduring a sharp pain. Seeing these needles, Dr. Andrew asked in surprise, "Is this Chinese acupuncture?" Gu Tianren turned to him and asked blankly, "Acupuncture?" He replied that Chinese acupuncture is one of the best medical techniques in the country. When used correctly, it can help relieve meridians, strengthen the body, and eliminate evil. It's just that in their time superpowers were increasingly used in medicine, ancient medical knowledge was lost. He had only heard about it before. Lai Jian entered the conversation and said that there is a lot of information about this. He continued the treatment, the needles in the old man's body began to suck out all the bad energy from him. Lai Jian then raised his hand to his heart and said that it was time for the last stage. The remnants of poison accumulated in the vessels of his heart must be displaced with a surge of energy. While he was saying this, streams of energy began to gather near his hand, and then he suddenly released all the energy into the old man, causing more and more energy to swirl around them. After that, all the needles flew out of Gu Wen's body, and he coughed, spitting blood. His grandchildren became very worried and called out to him, and then came up to him and examined their grandfather, but he still sat in one place and did not move. Then Gu Tianju asked Lai Jian, did he fail? Their uncle chuckled and told them that of course it didn't work out. He said that he could not cure him. Lai Jian remained silent, and at that very moment Gu Wen opened his eyes and his grandchildren were very happy, telling the others to look at him. He woke up. Gu Tianju hugged him from behind and said with a smile that he scared them to death. Gu Tianren lay down on his lap, starting to cry, and he told them to stop. He was fine. His son was very surprised and exclaimed, did he seriously cure him? Gu Wen looked at his hands, which were now filled with strength, and said that this was the first time since he got sick that he felt so good. He covered his fist with his palm and thanked Lai Jian for healing him. Lai Jian replied that he was able to save him because he was here now, but in the future, if someone poisoned him again, then he could only pray. Hearing this, Gu Wen's grandchildren asked in shock, was he poisoned? Their uncle approached Lai Jian and told him not to think that he could say such things just because he cured his father. Who could do such a thing under the protection of the Gu family? His father's health deteriorated due to his research into superpowers. Lai Jian replied that he still continued to slander that it was he who offended Chief Gu. The man was taken aback by his words and fell silent, unable to find anything to answer him. Then Gu Wen's grandchildren began to suspect him. Gu Tianren raised her hand to her face and said that her uncle always seemed a little strange to her. Grandfather hasn't been studying abilities for a long time. Gu Tianju agreed and said that grandfather always had the health of an ox. although in the early stages he had problems with his legs due to his superpower. But he had no other problems, and he began taking Uncle Damien's medicine, only then his health deteriorated. Listening to their suspicions, Gu Wen's hand, which was lying on the armrest of the chair, trembled. Damien was furious that he was being blamed, and then grabbed Gu Tianju's clothes and asked what he was talking about. Some leftist just said such nonsense, and he immediately started doubting him. He doesn't trust his uncle. Gu Tianju asked him to calm down and replied that he was just reasoning. Gu Wen looked up at them and also began to doubt Damien. He took out a bottle of medicine and, handing it to Lai Jian, said that this is the medicine that he took. Could his son try it out to prove his innocence? Lai Jian took the bottle of medicine to take a closer look, and Damien asked his father if he really doubted his own son. He deliberately sets him up. Then Lai Jian handed him a bottle of medicine and said that since it was not poison, then let him just drink it. Damien began to stutter out of excitement. He backed away and his father said his name with displeasure. Damien became very nervous and asked how he could be so careless with medications. Dr. Andrew also noticed something strange and said that he seems to remember Mr. saying that this medicine is made from various natural herbs and it is safe for ordinary people to drink it. Damien gritted his teeth and looked at him, thinking that he would not let Lai Jian ruin his day. How dare he set him up? After the doctor talked about the cure, Damien pulled out a gun and shot him, telling him to shut up. Lai Jian reacted quickly. In an instant, he approached the doctor and caught the bullet with 2 fingers right in front of his face, and said that he thought this could be counted as an admission that the medicine was poisoned. Gu Wen got angry and asked his son, "What does this all mean?" Damien again pointed the gun at the doctor and shouted that there was nothing wrong with this medicine. It was probably the doctor who poisoned it and set him up. Andrew became frightened and raised his hands, answering that it was not so. How dare he poison Head Gu's medicine? Lai Jian said that apparently he will not give up until he sees the Yellow River. Immediately after these words, he sharply approached Damien and waved his hand, knocking the pistol out of his hands, causing the weapon to break into 2 halves. With a strong wave of Lai Jian's hand, Damien's sleeve tore and showed the wounds on the skin that he had hidden before. Gu Tianren asked, "What is this?" Gu Tianju also noticed this and asked where their uncle got the red birthmark on his arm. Andrew took a closer look at these wounds and said that it was not a birthmark, but rather like a scar from poison that eats away at the skin. Lai Jian said that when he arrived, he noticed that his breathing was short. He poisons Chief Gu's medicine with crushed red root, and over time the poison penetrates his skin. It is not fatal, but can take several years off your life. Damien was very scared and asked, "His skin? Is he poisoned too?" "No, he doesn't want to die." He immediately fell to his knees in front of Lai Jian and grabbed his hands, saying that there are only a few people in China who can cure the red root poison. He asks no, he begs him to help him. Gu Chanren covered her mouth with her hand in shock and told her grandfather that their uncle had indeed given him poison. Gu Wen's face darkened even more, and at the same moment Lai Jian kicked Damien, telling him to get out of here. Damien fell to the floor, and then he turned to his father and said that he knew he was wrong. Because of his obsession, he made a huge mistake. He begs for his forgiveness. Damien crawled towards him on his knees, and Gu Wen put his hand on his head and said that he wanted to poison and kill his father, and also slandered others. He is afraid he has no place in their family. His gaze filled with hostility and coldness when he looked at his son again. Then he said that it would be better for him to go to the inspectorate and refresh his memory. Damien froze in shock, remembering in horror what they were doing at the inspection, and thought, is he sending him there? The guards grabbed Damien by the arms and dragged him to the exit, and he, not paying attention to them, called out to his father and said that the inspection department was an inhuman place. They continued to take him away, but his father did not utter a word, and then he called out to him again, but it was all to no avail. Gu Chanren looked upset as her uncle was taken away, and said that she couldn't believe that he could do such a thing. Aren't they one family? Gu Chanju told her not to be sad. Fortunately, the master was here today, otherwise their grandfather would not have been saved. After that, Gu Wen looked up at Lai Jian and apologized to him, saying that it was all because of poor discipline that made him laugh. He is feeling great now and would like to discuss something with him. Lai Jian asked, "What is it?" Gu Wen's gaze became very serious, and he asked if he knew where the belief about the Wuju ring came from. They moved to his office, which was furnished with cabinets with books and various vases. Lai Jian sat down at the table opposite Gu Wen, and he put a few photographs on the table and asked him to take a look at it. Lai Jian took the photos and brought them closer to look at them. In these photos, he saw ancient buildings and thought, are these relics of cultivators? Gu Wen said that when he was young, he once discovered a tomb and sent people to explore it. Most of the old collections, including the Wuju ring, were discovered in this tomb. Lai Jian looked at the photo again and thought that for a ruin of this magnitude, it must have been an era of spiritual cultivation, full of spiritual energy. Most likely, there is something else hidden underground, and perhaps this will help him in his cultivation. After thinking about it, he asked where these ruins are now. Gu Wen replied that it so happened that in the process of exploring the tomb, his subordinates stupidly triggered the mechanism, as a result of which it self-destructed and collapsed. So he won't be able to look at the ruins in person. However, if he really needs it, he will try to find the remaining relics for him. Lai Jian asked, doesn't he think it's funny that a superpower researcher wants to help him with his practice? Gu Wen then replied that he didn't even know what a long and winding story it was. When the old man was young, he was very obsessed with power and money. He thought that with absolute power over superpowers, he could have both. But after careful examination of the abilities, he realized that they had huge drawbacks. Having given himself an injection, he immediately went mad and, together with the rest of the experimental subjects, began to destroy the laboratory. This seemingly enormous force, like a poppy, destroys the human mind. But at that time, the old man was greedy and enjoyed the benefits due to the research of superpowers. He ignored all the risks and decided to continue the research. Then the worst thing happened. All the experimental subjects destroyed the entire laboratory and killed the scientists. He had no idea that as he peered into the abyss, he had long since plunged into its depths, like a tormented soul trapped in the darkness that it was so eager to comprehend. Having said all this, he squeezed the armrest of the chair, and after a short pause said that the power of superhuman abilities far exceeds the capabilities of ordinary people. He is afraid that the same innocent, reckless people will repeat the same mistakes. So he secretly studied the ancient practices. After listening to his story, Lai Jian thought that it turns out that the creation of superpowers is the creation of immortals that can become possessed by evil spirits. Gu Wen said that he dared not ask his dear friend for anything in return. Being able to help him is a blessing for his Gu family. But if he could teach him this art, he would entrust the future of his family only to him. Lai Jian silently put the photos back on the table, and then got up from his chair and walked towards the exit, saying that only when he found the ruins could he discuss the terms. Meanwhile, at the Wanjin Club, everything was destroyed. All the walls and floor were drenched in alcohol, blood, and covered in broken glass. Chen Zio was sitting in the center of the hall, looking at one point, and suddenly his son came. He called out to his father with a smile and asked, "How are things going there? Did he teach that idiot a lesson?" He stopped short when he saw that the club was completely destroyed inside and thought what happened here. What gang did this old man get involved with again? Chen Zio turned to his son, and he, seeing his crippled father with a bunch of bandages on his body, cursed loudly and asked in surprise, is he really his father? How did they even beat him like that? His father got very angry. He immediately slapped him and told him that he was just a useless piece of trash. He was always causing him problems. From such a blow, Chen Hu flew back and fell to the floor. Then he put his hand to the place of the blow and asked why he hit him. His father shouted in rage that he should get out of his sight. He remembered how a little earlier Gu Tianju came along with his men and began to destroy everything around. And Gu Tianju himself then calmly sat on the chair and asked Chen Zio, did he dare to insult the master? Remembering all this, Chen Zio raised his hand to his face and told his son that he was such a self-confident idiot. He chose to fight the wrong person, of all the people he got involved with Lai Jian. Ren Wukong approached him and asked him to calm down, saying that now that the Wanjin had provoked the Gu family, it was useless to continue to anger the young master. Their main priority now is to entertain their esteemed guests from the east. Chen Zio swung at him and said that he should hurry up then. If he messes up again, he will make him regret that he was even born. Ren Wukong bowed to him and replied that he understood him. The next day came, Lai Jian and Jai Sai went to the university as always. They walked down the corridor together, and she asked what they talked about last night with Mr. Gu. She remembered how she was sitting at the table and old man Gu waved his hand at her with a smile, following the indifferent Lai Jian. She said that when he left, there was no face on him, but when he came out to see him off, he was all glowing with joy. Lai Jian replied that they discussed some transactions. A picture immediately appeared in Jai Sai's head of her brother standing under the wedding arch with Gu Chanren, and she thought, a deal? Her face darkened, and she thought, is he not going to get married? Unable to bear all this, she shouted that this could not be. Lai Jian calmly asked, why not? She puffed out her cheeks with offense and said that he couldn't leave her and her mother. Lai Jian didn't understand what she was talking about and looked at her with a questioning look, but suddenly Chen Hu's call came from behind. With a heavy gait, he walked towards him along the corridor along with his friend, and one of the students said that this was Brother Hu. He heard that yesterday Lai Jian beat him because of his stupidity. He probably wants to settle scores with him now. There will finally be a show. As soon as Chen Hu approached Lai Jian, he and his friend gritted their teeth and immediately bowed deeply to Lai Jian. They apologized to him and said that they were wrong. Now at Yongjin University, he will have the final say. Jai Sai was even a little scared. She had already squeezed Lai Jian's shoulder, preparing for him to be bullied again, but in spite of this happened. The students around were very surprised, and one of them asked what was happening. Why is he talking to this like that? Another student said that Brother Hu is the director's son. So why is he so afraid? Maybe this fool has supporters? Another student said that they had better not provoke Lai Jian in the future. After hearing their apology, Lai Jian walked around Chen Hu and his friend and told him to get lost. Let him not come another step closer to him and Jai Sai. Chen Hu and his friend on his knees turned to him, still continuing to bow, and said that they understood everything. While they were leaving, Jai Sai's phone vibrated in her pocket, and she immediately drew attention to it. After that, she took out her phone to check what was there, and in an instant her gaze was filled with horror. She became very nervous and froze in place. Lai Jian noticed that she stopped and asked if something was wrong. She immediately hid the phone behind her back and, hugging his hand again, said with a smile that everything was fine. Classes had almost started, so they needed to go quickly. Still, she decided not to tell Lai Jian about the message that scared her so much. This message was from Dunfang Yuanshu. He wrote to her that he missed her and suggested meeting her. A few days later, Saturday, Yuzhong University. Lai Jian sits in the stands of the sports ground and meditates. 3 guys notice him and say that he's been sitting there all day, motionless, and he doesn't even know what he's doing. It's not like he doesn't know that Lai Jian is sick. They should keep their voices down because he has Chen Hu's support. Lai Jian heard this and begins to radiate his energy, which is directed towards these guys. The moment his energy reached them, they felt it and it scared them greatly. The guys got scared because of this and asked why he couldn't move his legs. Why did the weather suddenly become so cold? It's all his fault. He must have heard all the bad things he said about him. Lai Jian opens his eyes at this moment. He sees these guys kneeling and shaking because of his energy and thinks that they are a group of mediocre, superpowered people who couldn't even bear the sigh he unintentionally took. He raised his hand and the energy that came from him began to disappear. As soon as he did this, the 3 guys immediately fell to the ground. They asked what just happened. They were saved, but it was scary. They simultaneously turned and looked at Lai Jian with horror in their eyes. He continues to sit in the stands and, without showing any emotion, silently looks at them. The guys run away from him and say that they were wrong and ask for forgiveness for this. They need to get out of here now. Lai Jian looks at his hand and thinks that he has reached the 7th level of Kai refining. The spiritual energy in this world is contaminated, and this is the limit for achieving this degree of cultivation. To break through the foundation, he needs a treasure land rich in spiritual energy, and he is not sure that Old Man Gu will be able to find it. He received a call on his phone and answered the call from Aunt Liu Ran. She apologizes and says that Jai Chengshin just came to their house and took Jai Sai. Lai Jian was surprised when he heard this and asks where did they go. At the same time, in a luxurious multi-story building, Jai Chengshin tells his good daughter that she should follow him. Jai Sai gets angry when he hugs her and says that this is the last time she will help him. After this, they will no longer have a father-daughter relationship. Jai Chengshin says she shouldn't be so heartless. Jai Sai pushes his hand away and says that he should let go of it. He says that her dad is true to his word and will never interfere in their lives in the future. They have come to the right place, and he says that they must go there. They enter the room in which some guy was. A guy with a glass of wine in his hand tells Jai Sai that they haven't seen each other for a long time. Lai Jian came to the same building, but he was stopped at the entrance, and the doorman apologized and said that today their hotel is temporarily closed to the public. He looks at the man who does not allow him to enter and asks, "Where is Jai Sai now?" The doorman thinks about this name and wonders if it could be the girl that Master Dongfang called. This person should not be allowed to bother the young master. He says he doesn't know what he's talking about. But their hotel, Drew, cannot be broken into just by asking. He must leave here as quickly as possible. The doorman put out his hand, blocking the passage, and Lai Jian says that he should step aside. The doorman motions to other people in uniform and says that he will have to do it the hard way. Someone needs to get this ungrateful creature out of here. Many armed guys have surrounded Lai Jian and are about to attack him at the same time. They cannot break through the barrier surrounding it and ask what it is. Is this really a defensive superpower? Lai Jian looks at these people who tried to attack him. He releases strong energy around him and pushes all these people in different directions. The doorman was very frightened and sitting on the ground asked what he was going to do. Today, the Dongfang family booked a room in their hotel. If he dares to enter, then he will have to pay for it. Lai Jian looks at him menacingly and asks where Jai Sai is. Chen Zio comes out of the hotel and asks what are they doing to cause such a commotion. If they disturb their distinguished guests, they will be in big trouble. The doorman turns to him and tells the owner of the hall that this is the man who is causing problems at the entrance. Ren Wukong was very surprised when he recognized Lai Jian. An unsuspecting Chen Zio approached him and pointed his fingers at him and asked where this wild guy came from. He dared to cause trouble in his home. Someone should throw it into a pond and feed it to the snakes. Ren Wukong approached the head of the hall and said that this was Lai Jian. Chen Zio repeated the name he said, trying to remember it. When he remembered this, his face immediately changed and he dropped his cigar in surprise. He smiles anxiously and says that it turns out that this is brother Lai Jian. He was short-sighted and did not recognize him just now. He really hopes that he will forgive him. Why did he have the audacity to come to their hotel, Drew, today? Lai Jian asks if he knows where Jai Sai is now. Chen Zio repeats the name he said again, trying to remember it. Ren Wukong stands next to him and asks if the young lady invited by Master Dongfang turns out to be someone familiar with him. Chen Zio became embarrassed when he thought about this, and a bead of sweat ran down his face. He motions for him to come in and says that Lady Jai Sai and the others are in the penthouse. Someone should go and take him there. The porters bowed to him and agreed to this. Ren Wukong tells the hall master that if he lets him in, then Master Dongfang will not leave them alone. Chen Zio asks what he should even do in such a situation. If they don't let him in, how can the Gu family let them go? He should go and inform them about this, and at least they can get this favor from the Gu family. Ren Wukong bowed to him and agreed with the hall master. At the same time, Jai Chengxian sits on the sofa and is about to drink from a mug on the table in front of him. He drinks and thinks that he did not expect that everything would go so easily. From now on, good times are coming for their Jai family. Jai Sai shouldn't blame her father because everyone is chasing fame and fortune. In order to make this business deal with the Dongfang family, he had to sacrifice her. However, this is not necessarily a bad thing. After all, marrying into the Dongfang family is the great dream of many girls. He turns around and notices a man walking in his direction. Jai Chengxian doesn't pay attention to Lai Jian, who walks towards him and says that the people from Wanjin Hall are actually a bunch of idiots. They can't even stop this idiot. He shoos him away with a wave of his hand and tells the idiot that he has to get out of here. He must not destroy his good things. He didn't have time to finish because Lai Jian grabbed him by the throat. He lifts him high above the ground and says that a father who sold his own daughter for his own benefit is very cruel. Jai Chengxian gasps and says that he should let him go. Lai Jian looks at him with contempt and says that killing him will get his hands dirty. He threw it at the wall and says it must get lost. Jai Chengxian looks at him while sitting against the wall and thinks that this idiot seems to have turned into a different person. At the same time, the young lord of the Dongfang family, Yuan Shuo, tells Jai Sai that he has not seen her for a long time, but she is still stunning. He extends his hand to her and says that especially her jade eyes, once he saw it for the first time, it already made him drown. He reaches out and is about to touch her face. Jai Sai pushes his hand away and says he shouldn't touch her. The young lord of the Dongfang Yuanshu family laughed and said that she shouldn't be angry because it was just a joke. Jai Sai leaves the table and says that her father just invited her to have dinner with him. Now that she has finished eating, she apologizes. Dongfang Yuanshu takes a sip of wine and says that if she insists on leaving, he won't stop her. However, if she just left like that, did she think about what her father would do to her mother? Jai-sai turned around after hearing this and looked at him angrily. Dongfang Yuanshu says that she should sit back down and stay with him a little longer. He apologizes to her and says that he also knows that she doesn't like him, and yet he can't ignore his feelings. In fact, he came to them today to put aside his fears and put an end to it. He hands her a glass of wine and says that she should finish this glass of wine, and from now on everything will be fine between them. She knows that he keeps his word. Jai-sai took a glass of wine and wondered if he was really that kind. But if she offends him, then Dad will not let Mom go. Dongfang Yuanshu looks at her and thinks that the wine is infused with an intoxicating substance that he bought on the black market for a lot of money, and whoever drinks it will fall in love with the person standing in front of him with all his heart. She must drink it and belong to him. Suddenly, someone bursts into the room and destroys the door into small pieces with a loud sound. They were both surprised when they noticed this and turned to the door. Dongfang Yuanshu asks, "Who is this person? How dare he ruin this young master's good deeds?" Lai Jian enters their room through the door he destroyed. He walks towards them with an angry expression and says that he came here to take Jai-sai home. She runs up to him and says that she is glad that he is here. Dongfang Yuanshu looks at Lai Jian, who looks at him and wonders, is this the same idiot? He gets up from the table, concentrating his energy in his hand, and says that a simple idiot wants to destroy his business. He raises his hand, from which icy energy emanates. He is about to attack with his hand, releasing his energy, and says that he is asking for death. Jai-sai is very worried about what he is going to do and wants to say something to Lai Jian. He stands in front of her, protecting her with his hand, and says that she need not be afraid. Strong energy begins to emanate from his body, and he says that he should not overestimate his own capabilities. He releases a strong energy that pushes back Dongfang Yuanshu violently. He continues to fly after this attack and coughs up blood due to the damage he received. He hit his back very hard against the wall and wonders what's going on. Why is this idiot so strong? He looks in horror at Lai Jian, who continues to control the energy in his hand with a menacing look. He raises his hand with which he emits energy and says that if he insults his family, then he should be taught a lesson. He uses the Taoist palm technique, and after this there is a very strong explosion of energy. Someone was able to stop this attack with a shield. It was the Dongfang family bodyguard, level 9 ability user, Kulai Kong. He used the skill of working beyond metals. He turns and tells the master that the strength of this gentleman cannot be underestimated. He must hide in a safe place and leave it to his subordinates. Dongfang Yuanshu says that it is difficult to understand the hatred in his heart until he dies. He must kill him. He may consider that he is already dead. Kulai Kong looked at his master silently for a while. He turns to his opponent and agrees with the master. Lai Jian looks at him and wonders, is this a Kai refining peak or a metal peak? Kulai Kong says that he will give him a chance to learn 2 tricks. He is powerful, but at the same time arrogant. Anyone who harms the young master will not have a good end, so he must kill him. Having said this, he created a weapon in his hand. He begins to shoot from this weapon, destroying things in this room. He continues to shoot, creating another weapon with his other hand, but Lai Jian manages to deflect these shots. A frightened Dongfang Yuanshu runs away and says that he should not hurt him. Lai Jian dodges many shots and thinks that it is a very interesting ability to collect his true essence in the body to appear again. He got within striking distance of Kulai Kong and thinks that after all, this is just a poor imitation of cultivation methods. Lai Jian punches his body very hard and pushes him back. Kulai Kong quickly gathered himself after this blow and created a blade from his hand and was about to strike back. At the moment of this attack, Lai Jian was absolutely calm and even closed his eyes. His punch missed his head and he grabbed Kulai Kong's hand with which he was trying to strike. Lai Jian threw him over himself and hit him hard on the floor. Kulai Kong turns his head in his direction and opens his mouth and is about to shoot at him. A weapon came out of his mouth, with which he fired several shots into the head of his opponent. However, what he saw after these shots shocked him. Lai Jian looks at him and holds all the bullets between his fingers. Kulai Kong was very surprised by this and thinks that even the superpower enhanced bullets were blocked by him. Maybe he has a superpower of speed. Lai Jian raised his leg very high, about to strike very hard. He finished this blow and punched through the floor with it, sending Kulai Kong to the floor below. He was able to protect himself by creating armor using his ability, and crawling out from under the rubble. He thinks that this is impossible. It couldn't be that someone with a speed-type superpower could have such powerful strength. Lai Jian jumped towards him, kicking him, but he managed to jump to the side and dodge this attack. Kulai Kong created a weapon from his hands, and when he takes the shot, he thinks that maybe he has both strength and speed abilities. Is he the owner of an extremely rare combined superpower? Lai Jian very quickly walked around him and ended up behind him, which greatly surprised him. He kicks and throws Kulai Kong into the wall with great force. With the help of his energy, he created a magic circle with the sign of the dragon, directing it towards him. With the help of this magic circle, he released a very strong stream of energy, which made its way to the street through the walls of the hotel. Chen Zio heard the explosion and covered his head with his hand. He turns towards the explosion and wonders what these little ancestors are doing there. He shouldn't let anything happen to anyone. At that time, Kulai Kong punches the ground and blood flows down his arm from the wound. He looks at his opponent and asks what kind of superpower he has. Lai Jian asks, did he say superpower? He accepts everything as it comes. The difference in strength between them is too great to lose someone's life. He wants to fight him for this guy with a human face and an animal heart. Kulai Kong took out a test tube with some substance and said that if he is assigned any task, he will obey the instructions of the Dongfeng family. This is the principle he always followed in his life. He injects this drug into his neck and says that no matter what happens today, he must complete the task. It uses an N-type superpower enhancer. This can enhance the user's superpower for a short time, but will shorten their lifespan. After using this drug, veins began to bulge all over his body, his eyes turned red, and he began to scream loudly. Lai Jian notices that something strange is happening to him and continues to watch him. Kulai Kong releases strong dark energy around his body and screams loudly. Lai Jian looks at him and thinks that there is a power in his body that is growing rapidly, like spiritual power, but there is a slight difference with spiritual power. Kulai Kong looks at him with a distraught look, and the veins on his face are very swollen. He shoots the weapon he made from his hands and says he should try it. He waves his hands to direct the beams, but Lai Jian creates a sphere that blocks this attack. His barrier cracks, and he thinks that this is really much stronger than the attacks he dealt before. He snaps his fingers, releasing dark red energy, and says that it's almost time to take stock. He released Cerberus, who immediately attacked his opponent. Kulai Kong was surprised. This is what he is thinking. Did he summon a monster? Is this one of his superpowers? What abilities does he have? He creates several grenades from his hand and looks at the monster in front of him. A very strong explosion occurs, which throws Cerberus away. Kulai Kong creates several weapons from his stomach and says that he must die for him. He fires a huge number of shots from the weapon he just created. Dark energy begins to ooze from all three heads of Cerberus. He releases all this strong energy which hits Kulai Kong, and it makes him scream in pain. With the last of his strength, he stands on his feet and says that this is not the end. Lai Jian, standing behind him, concentrates energy in his hand and says that it is almost over. Feeling the power of the sword is one of them. Saying go, he releases a sword made of energy that hits Kulai Kong's head. Chuzu's sword style is Bai Shu, which is now a sword style created by Lai Jian himself. It has 6 styles, leaving, walking, enlightenment, emptiness, returning, and feeling. The purpose of this sword is to cut 6 objects. Once it appeared, it was considered one of the strongest swords in the cultivation world. This first intention of the sword can kill someone. It can also cut off the heart. After this attack, Kulai Kong fell to the ground with a loud sound. Lai Jian leaves him and wonders, what about a world where superpowers rule? The righteous path to achieving immortality will never end. Jai Sai hugs him from behind, having caught up with him, and says that he scared her to death because he had a weapon. Lai Jian turns to her and says that she doesn't have to worry because this thing can't harm him. She notices Cerberus, who has shrunk, and asks if he summoned that dog. How can he even use beast-type superpowers? Lai Jian says he is just a servant. Jai Sai looks at Cerberus and asks, is this a servant? At the same time, Jai Chengshin helps the master up and says that he must be careful. Dongfang Yuanshu says this is amazing. This idiot can be defeated by someone with a level 9 superpower. He gets very angry and says that in his entire life, no one dared to be so arrogant in front of his family. At this moment, Lai Jian and Jai Sai were surrounded by several armed men. Dongfang Yuanshu asks if he really thinks he can leave here alive. Gu Wen asks who would dare to touch the benefactor of his family. Dongfang Yuanshu was very surprised when he heard this voice and realized who was talking to him. Gu Wen asks if he doesn't value his family in his eyes. Dongfang Yuanshu says that it turns out it was Lord Gu. That's right, he forgot that there is a family of his in Jingcheng City that can keep up with his Dongfang family. He wonders why the head of the Gu family, who never shows up just like that, was here. His dad invited him so many times, but he never accepted the invitation. He hasn't visited the Superpowers Chamber of Commerce in years, so why is he here? Jai Chengshin was very surprised when he noticed him and asked, "Is this Gu Wen?" He thinks that it is no wonder that this idiot can be so arrogant. It turns out that he has the support of the Gu family. Gu Wen says that it was all because of the old man's negligence that these blind freaks insulted Lord Lai. The two of them weren't hurt, right? Lai Jian says he is fine, but Jai Sai was shocked. Gu Wen says he feels sorry for her. He would like to ask Miss Jai to rest for a while. This old man will definitely give them an explanation. Lai Jian leaves with her and says that in any case, today for his sake, he will spare his life. Dongfang Yuanshu is outraged by this and says that for the sake of the Gu family, he will be the one to save his life. Gu Wen says that Mr. Berzajulai once saved his life. If he offends him, he will offend his entire family. Today, he will teach him a good lesson for his little friend. Men in suits grab Dongfang Yuanshu, and he says that this guy is just an idiot. How could he make him worry so much? The most important aspect is the excellent cooperation of their families. He should not sacrifice much for little. Gu Wen asks, how can a simple Dongfang family compare to a benefactor? Lai Jian is the future support of his family. Dongfang Yuanshu asks, does he really want to hurt his family for this idiot? Gu Wen says that if his family wants to declare war, then his family will accompany them to the end. They should carefully weigh the cost of fighting his Gu family. Dongfang Yuanshu thinks that if there is a stalemate between their families today, cooperation in superpower research will be difficult. The family elders would not only punish him severely, but would even question his ability to manage the family business in the future. While several people are holding him, another raises his fist and is about to hit him. The man hit him in the face and knocked out one of his teeth. Dongfang Yuanshu calls Gu Wen and says that he was wrong. This junior will not dare to do it again. The old man turns to him and says that if he offends Lai Jian, he will die. It's just to teach him a lesson. Sometime later, someone threw a mug and smashed it on Jai Chengshin's head. He endured it and hung his head guiltily. Dongfang Yuanshu asks, does he have any idea? He lies bandaged in a hospital bed and says that Lai Jian is the adopted son of his ex-wife. His relationship with the Gu family is extraordinary. How could he not know this? Jai Chengshin tells the young master that he really doesn't know. He just received a call. Downstream customers suddenly canceled their orders, and the Jai family lost a lot of money. He is the same as him. It's all because of that damned Lai Jian. Dongfang Yuanshu is angry with him and the Gu family and says that if it weren't for the fact that the family elders have always wanted the research results of Gu Wen's superpower, and the two families are discussing cooperation otherwise, he would definitely let them die without a burial place. Jai Chengshin pours water into a mug and says that the young master has an outstanding status and it is not proper for him to take action personally, and the Gu family is not easily offended. He hands him a glass of water and says that, however, they can get rid of this damned Lai Jian with the wrong hands. Dongfang Yuanshu looks at him and asks, does he mean them? He agrees with him with an evil smile and says that let them send Lai Jian to hell. Some time later, Jai Sai lies in a hot bath with flower petals. She strokes Cerberus, who is sitting with her in the bathroom, and says that Lai Jian has really changed lately, although he still says some inexplicable and strange things. However, he is no longer as weak as he was before. She hugs Cerberus and says that what's more, he also awakened a very powerful superpower and used many abilities that she had never seen before. When he gets serious, he's really handsome. She was embarrassed by what she said, hits herself in the face with her hands and asks, what is she even thinking about? Lai Jian sits on the sofa and reads a book. He hears a knock on the door, which caught his attention and pulled him away from his reading. He comes to the door and thinks that, as expected, this freak did not give up and actually dared to send an assassin to attack. He opens the door and thinks that, however, there was some kind of familiar aura about this man. He looks out the door and asks, what is he doing here? He saw Kulai Kong, whose hand was turned into a blade, and the bodies of the people he had defeated lying on the ground. He kneels in front of him and tells Master Lai Jian that judging by his abilities, it will be easy for him to kill them, but he is kind-hearted and did not kill him. He is truly a righteous man. He left the Dongfang family and wants to follow him in the future. Lai Jian closes the door and says that he just doesn't want to get his hands dirty, so he can leave. Kulai Kong stopped the door and says that it was his fault that he offended him earlier. He is ready to work like a cow or a horse to serve the master, and he also asks him to give him a chance. Lai Jian looks at him and asks the reason for his decision. Kulai Kong says that he enjoyed reading online novels since childhood and dreamed of becoming the main character in these novels. Today he fought with him, and he seems to be completely different. The superpowers he uses are unheard of, just like the masters in fairy tale novels. He wants to be a strong person like him. He bowed, hitting his head on the floor, and says that as long as he can stay by his side, he will never give up. Lai Jian looks at him and thinks that this person was previously used by Dongfang Yuanshu, and now he has come to seek refuge with him. Is his goal really that simple? But today he seriously injured him, and he recovered in just half a day. Possessing a different physique and superpowers alienated from ordinary people, this person can find some use. Lai Jian closes the door and says that he must watch the door. First he must prove that he can use it. Kulai Kong loudly agrees with him. Jai Sai comes out of the bathroom and asks him who is outside. Lai Jian says this is Kulai Kong. If he wasn't around in the future, he could protect them all. He heard a knock on the door which caught his attention. He opens the door with a dissatisfied expression on his face and asks what's the matter. Gu Chanren waves his hand at him and calls him a benefactor brother. Jai Sai looks at her with a dissatisfied expression and asks, is there something wrong here? Gu Chanren looks to the side and says that her grandfather asked her to give something to her benefactor brother. She points to the cases that the two men brought and says that grandfather said that there are no treasures in their family that their benefactor brother would appreciate. The men open cases with various items, and she says that, however, the benefactor can definitely use these things. Jai Sai wonders why he is sending something to Lai Jian again. It can't be predicted before hiring, right? Lai Jian looks at these things and thinks that the quality of the materials used to make magic weapons is hardly acceptable. He can use this to make some useful magical weapons. He says that there is still something missing here, a forge. Gu Chanren says that there was a forge there, but Grandpa kept it in an antique store. It was sealed in a stone box and was inconvenient to transport. Grandfather was worried that the sudden opening would affect the quality of the treasure, so he asked his benefactor to go there personally. Lai Jian says then he will go there now. Gu Chanren agreed to this with a joyful expression. Jai Sai was very surprised when she heard this, and her face turned red. She thinks two people, a man and a woman, are going somewhere in the middle of the night. She won't let that happen, she says. That he shouldn't go out so late, it's very dangerous there. Lai Jian and Gu Chanren turn to her, and he asks, is it dangerous there? Jai Sai is embarrassed after what she said and looks at them. She is embarrassed and silently waits for a reaction from them. Lai Jian wonders, is she worried about what happened during the day? He says that then he will go there tomorrow morning. Gu Chanren agrees with the benefactor and says that then they will see each other tomorrow morning. Lai Jian closes the door and says she doesn't need to worry. He took her by the shoulders and says that from now on, he will not allow anyone to hurt her. Jai Sai is embarrassed by his actions and says that she is not worried about others hurting her. She worries about others kidnapping him. Lai Jian doesn't understand what she meant and asks, is she afraid that he will be kidnapped? Jai Sai turned away from him and got angry and called him a fool. The next day, peerless shop owner Zhang Ming tells Miss Gu that he is glad she is here. Welcome. And who is it? Gu Chanren thinks that she is so happy because she was able to meet her benefactor. She raised her hand to Lai Jian and calling his name says that this is the benefactor of her family. Zhang Ming says it turns out it's Master Lai. He's sorry. Two distinguished guests must have come to the store to pick up the antiques kept by Gu Wen, right? They must go with him. They came to the right place, and he says that this treasure has not been touched since it arrived in their store, and it is well preserved. Master Lai can feel free to check it out. Lai Jian says that this is a low-quality, defective product. They can throw it away. Zhang Ming is very surprised by this and asks, can they just throw it away? This is the treasure of this store. Lai Jian noticed something and looked to the side. He notices streams of dark energy emanating from one of the items in the store. He walks towards this energy. Gu Chanren runs after him and tells his benefactor brother that he must wait for her. Jiang Ming runs after him and tells Master Lai that he can't just go there. Lai Jian doesn't listen to them and heads towards the source emitting the energy that caught his attention. He stopped at the source of energy and turning to them asked what was inside. Jiang Ming is very surprised by this and tells Master Lai that they can look at something else. What is inside is inviolable. It really is sacrosanct. He spent a ton of money before he asked people to seal it. If this is made public, the problems will be big. Lai Jian releases his energy and removes the blockage that was preventing passage. He walks towards the source of energy and thinks that the closer he comes to this door, the more abundant the spiritual energy becomes. There must be something here for him. Jiang Ming asks Miss what level of superpower does Master Lai have? Gu Tianren asks, probably capable. Manipulator. It doesn't seem like that's the case, she doesn't know. Jiang Ming asks, so she has no idea. She says that, however, the benefactor is very powerful. Lai Jian continues to walk towards the door behind which the energy source is hidden. The man hiding on the ceiling looks at him and thinks he has found his target. Lai Jian opens the door with a loud creak and looks at what is hiding in this room. He sees an empty room, in the middle of which there is a large cauldron, around which a magic circle has been drawn. He thinks it is a good quality ghost forge. It's not bad. Jiang Ming tries to stop him and calls him master. Lai Jian doesn't listen to him, releases his energy and orders him to break. He directed his energy to the forge and removed the magic circle. Suddenly the eyes painted on this forge began to radiate energy. The forge releases a large amount of strong and dark energy. Lai Jian put his hand in front of him and asked, has he finally woken up, right? Gu Tianren covers himself with his hands from the strong flow of energy that this forge emits. Jiang Ming covered his head with his hands and repeated that it was all over. The forge begins to change and laugh loudly. A huge demon burst out of this forge and says that he is hungry. Gu Tianren was surprised to see this and says that this is a living forge. This is the first time she has seen something like this. Her benefactor must deal with this. The demon is about to grab Lai Jian, opening his mouth wide and saying that he wants his brain. This demon makes a very loud roar and releases strong dark energy. Jiang Ming continues to cover his head with his hands and says that it got out, it's over. The demon quickly approaches him and tells him that he must let him eat his brain. Lai Jian stops this demon by channeling his energy through his hand. However, he was pushed hard and slid to the end of the room. He looks at this demon and says that he is so uncontrollable that he seems to need to teach him a lesson. The demon runs towards him and loudly screams about his brain. Lai Jian calmly stands in front of this monster and releasing his energy says that he is using the Lingyu sword technique, the second style. Bai Hua's breath catches. He quickly ran his fingers and released his energy. With this energy attack, he was able to cut through this demon, which greatly surprised him. The demon has greatly decreased in size and is trying to say something, but cannot. Lai Jian approaches this demon and says that he can be used by him or die. Sometime later, when the demon disappeared, Gu Chanren asks his benefactor, has this problem been solved? Jiang Ming runs towards him and tells the master that he really scared him to death. Lai Jian noticed something strange when he turned back. He waves his fingers, channeling his energy and asks how long is he going to hide. He broke several boards with his energy and the man who was watching him fell from the ceiling. The man was very scared because of this and asks his boss to forgive him. Lai Jian approaches him and asks who sent him. The man asks the boss to calm down and says that he will explain everything in fact. He uses the lower level skill Super Spider Silk and says that he can go down and ask the King of Hell about it. He wrapped a few threads around Lai Jian's neck, but he doesn't pay attention to it. Gu Chanren is worried about this and calls for Brother Virtue. The man tells this idiot that if he is still so relaxed in front of his enemy, he will cut off his head and come back for his reward. He pulled the strings and thinks it's strange. He can't cut it. Its web thread is stronger than steel wire, isn't it? Lai Jian untangles the threads that grabbed him and says that he wants to see what he can do. He released the demon he had just received, but in a normal state. A monster stabs a man with his hand, and he wonders what this is all about. He tries to use his threads to escape, but cannot do anything and is engulfed by the dark energy of the monster. The demon leans towards him and loudly shouts the word brain. Lai Jian stopped this demon, saying that now that he was on his right path, the evil ways and old habits from the past must be curbed and corrected. The demon turned to him and looked at him with great fear. He stepped back and looked with concern as Lai Jian walked up to the man and raised his hand. He notices a mark emitting energy on the man's hand. Jiang Ming was surprised when he noticed this mark and asked, "Is this the Blood Demon Church?" It is said that the Blood Demon Church is an organization of killers with superpowers that has existed for thousands of years. They are not affiliated with any power and will only accept orders from famous nobles. These believers, a group of madmen who will use any means necessary, as long as they can complete the assignment, they will not hesitate to give even their lives. Who did Master Lai provoke? Lai Jian turned to him and said that it was Dongfang Yuanshu. Jiang Ming was very surprised by this and asked, "Is he talking about the young master of the Dongfang family?" Gu Tianren gets very angry about this and asks how dare he send assassins to attack her benefactor brother. She's so angry that she's gonna call her grandfather right now. She called in Gu when, after listening to her, says that she should tell the benefactor that their family will definitely not leave this matter unattended. After some time in a bar called 8 Bars and Restaurants, Dongfang Yuanshu sits with the two girls and says that Lai Jian should not hold a grudge against him after his death. After all, he brought this on himself. He turns his attention to the two men who approached him from behind. They take him away from this bar, and he asks who sent them here. How dare they kidnap this young master? The men do not listen to him and throw him into the car. Dongfang Yuanshu says that since they dared to kidnap him, the Dongfang family will definitely make their bones disappear. He is surprised when he notices a man sitting in the front seat of the car. It was Xinyan, the Dongfang family's housekeeper, and he was looking at him. After some time, at the Gu family's mansion, Xinyan drags Dongfang Yuanshu inside by his hair, and he asks what is he doing. Xinyan put it on the ground and stepped on its head. He says that if the young master assessed the situation and respected the Gu family more, then the head of the family would not be so worried about handing over the young master of the Dongfang family to him. He raised his voice and said that he, Xinyan, would like to apologize on behalf of the Dongfang family. The termination of cooperation brings great harm to both families. He hopes that Master Gu will not have any grudges and will think again. Yuan Shuo is not very involved in the world and may have done something offensive, so he came to their house to apologize. Having finished his speech, he kicked him hard towards the mansion. Gu Chanju came out to them and says that grandfather said that if they offend their benefactor, they will become enemies of their family, so Master Xinyan must return. After all, the most important thing for the Dongfang family right now is to restore the family tradition. Xinyan says that the Dongfang family has the right to its own discretion in this matter. Gu Wen, standing on the balcony, said that after this incident, the Dongfang family would definitely not dare to offend his family again. Lai Jian asks if he called him here just for this. Gu Wen says that of course this is not true. This old man found what his little friend wanted. Some time later, Xinyan talks to someone on the phone in the car and says that he understood him. Dongfang Yuanshu wants to say something to his father, but he doesn't have time because he was interrupted. Xinyan says that the head of the family believed that the young master lacked the qualifications to inherit the Dongfang family's business, so he asked this old man to report this to the young master. If he cannot make a career, then there is no need to return to Dongfang House. Yuan Shuo began to worry about this, grabbed him by the shoulder, and asked him to help him convince his father. He says that it's all Lai Jian's fault who provoked all this. Xinyan kicked him out of the car, and he fell onto the road. He stayed in the car and tells the young master that from now on he must take care of himself on his own. Having done this, they immediately drove away, leaving a shocked Yuan Shuo sitting on the road. He gets angry and says that Xinyan is just a dog next to his father. When he returns and becomes the head of the family, he will be the first one he kills, and also that damned Lai Jian and the Gu family. At the same time, Lai Jian sits on the bed and uses his energy to direct materials to the forge next to him. When he put all the ingredients into the forge, smoke came out and strong energy swirled around. He points his hand at this forge and says that he must begin. A demon comes out of the forge with several items and happily says that it is done. The demon flew up to his master and said that he was hungry and wanted to eat the brains. Lai Jian inspects the items he received, attracted by his energy, and thinks that although the shapes of these items are different, all of these magical weapons have the effect of protecting the body, and a few cultivators at the foundation stage can break it. Even an attack at the pill formation stage can withstand several hits. He turns around and looks at the demon after hearing what he said. The demon is embarrassed by this and says that you simply can't eat it. Lai Jian brought the newly created items to Jai Sai, who does some exercises and says that these are for her and Aunt Liu Ran. She turns to him and asks, "Where did he buy it?" She put on the necklace he gave her and thinks that this idiot has finally understood something. Lai Jian says that this item was made by him personally, and by wearing this, she will be safe from now on. She can feel at ease even if he is not here. Chai Sai asks, where will he go now? Lai Jian says that after a long journey, the Gu family found what he wanted. Chai Sai says that then he will have to come back early. He leaves the room and agrees with her. He comes out into the hall and Kulai Kong calls him sir. Lai Jian points his fingers at him and uses his energy, causing the bracelet he made to appear on his hand. Kulai Kong is surprised when he notices this item on his hand and asks, "Sir, what is it?" Lai Jian looks at him as he leaves and says that this thing can help him practice and protect the person inside the room. If he has doublethink, then this thing will make his life worse than death. Kulai Kong happily agreed with Sir. Some time later, at night, in the suburbs of the city of Tsanking, Gu Tianju calls Lai Jian, who is walking next to him, a master. He says that the death arena, called the Black Raven, is a gray underground fighting site. It is comparable to black market boxing for unskilled people, except the participants have superpowers. The owner of the Arena of Death is a somewhat eccentric person. Even if they pressed him on behalf of the Gu family, he would not allow them to enter, unless they, brother and sister, are allowed to participate in a fight to the death. Lai Jian turns to him and asks if they will allow the two of them to participate. Gu Tianju says that they have almost agreed to do this, so if they have problems with the death arena, they will inevitably delay the master's entry into the ruins. They enter the secret door that was opened for them, and Gu Tianjun tells his benefactor brother that he can simply not be shy and go to the ruins. He can leave this matter to them. They are riding on a magic elevator, and Lai Jian asks the two if they are sure that they want to participate in a duel to the death. Gu Tianju tells the master that although they, brother and sister, are at a low level, the participants in the death arena must wear special ability suppression bracelets to suppress their superpowers with the same intensity. Gu Chanren says that her brother's traceless fire and her celestial spirit's ice are all superpowers. And even if he cannot defeat the enemy, saving his life is not a problem, right? Lai Jian breathes a sigh of relief and thinks that in the old days, it was difficult for farmers with this mentality to live long enough to lay a foundation. He grabbed Gu Tianren's shoulder, and this surprised her. He presses very quickly on the acupuncture points on her body. She was surprised by this and tells the benefactor that it tickles. Lai Jian finishes this, and she feels strange about it. She holds her stomach, and her face is red, and Gu Tianju begins to worry about his sister. Lai Jian silently presses one acupuncture point on his body. Suddenly, he starts emitting strong energy because of this, and veins pop out on his face. He wonders if his superpower has gotten out of control. What did the master do with him? Lai Jian says that he should concentrate on perception. Gu Tianju does what he said and closed his eyes. He continues to radiate strong energy and thinks that this restless flame no longer burns his body, as if he himself had become a flame. It turns out the way he used his superpower was wrong. Realizing this, he released even more powerful energy, and his jacket and shirt flew into pieces. Gu Tianren asks his brother why he is using his superpowers indiscriminately again. Isn't this dangerous? Gu Tianju says that she doesn't have to worry. He feels that he has become different, not the same as before. This flame no longer hurts him. Gu Tianren says that after saying this, she also suddenly felt a little different. She felt a pleasant smell around her. And this smell is similar to the smell of her brother Virtue. Lai Jian says that he unlocked Qigong for both of them. This is a reward for them finding the ruins. They both bowed to him and said that they were grateful to him, their benefactor brother. They are grateful to him for his guidance. They will definitely become masters in the future, and will not hesitate to go through thick and thin for him. The three of them enter the Black Raven Death Urn. At this point, people say that if he loses one more game, then he will no longer have any chance to save his daughter. They will meet on the battlefield. This time he will kill him. He sold his eyes. He really lost. Gu Chanren tells his brother that this place is such a mess. Gu Tianju says that she should be careful because everything here is different from outside. The Black Crow Death Arena exists all over the world, and what they see in front of them is only a small part of it. It can be said that the forces behind this have powerful hands and eyes, and even the supervision department does not have any jurisdiction over this place. They see one man beating another, and Gu Chanju continues to say that this lawless place has naturally become a gathering place for criminals. There is absolute strength here, that's all. Even if they are from the Gu family, no one will take them seriously. A man drinking his drink from a large mug says that they should beware of competitors with red rings. The participants who have survived several death matches are already strong men, but those with red rings are executioners who have survived hundreds of death matches, and it will be a big problem to provoke them. The man notices Gu Tianren and asks, "Is this an unfamiliar face?" He reaches out to her and says that there is another film about a little girl. She should turn to face him and let this master watch. Suddenly someone throws this man and breaks their table. The guy who is standing next to him asks, "Is someone asking for trouble?" Another man asks why such idiots appear every year. This is truly unfortunate. Lai Jian goes to the man he hit hard and says he must be lost. Suddenly someone put a hand on his shoulder and called out to get his attention. It was the Red Ring competitor, Liuoshin. He asks, is he new here? Does he even know where this place is? He is a newcomer. He dares to create problems. Maybe he is tired of life. Now he must kneel down and admit his mistake. This brother can think about forgiving him. Otherwise his life will be worse than death. Gu Changju tells the master that this person is a Red Ring participant. He must be careful. Lai Jian looked at him with a very menacing and frightening look and asked, "Is this for real?" Luoshin was very scared of him, removed his hand, and wondered who this child was. He has such a terrifying aura on his body at such a young age. The leader of the underground death arena, the Black Crow, Xiangnan, stood in front of him. He tells Luoshin that he should calm down. These are his distinguished guests. They are new here and don't know the rules. They must forget what just happened. Luoshin leaves and says that the underground master has spoken, so naturally he has to show his face. But they should not think that this is the end of the matter. Xiangnan says that Luoshin, one of the top competitors in his deathmatch arena, has a bit of a hot temper and often behaves offensively. This is not a suitable place for receiving guests. Distinguished guests must follow him. Sometime later, Xiangnan sat down at his table and pointed to the bottle and said that this wine was from his collection. They should not neglect this as honored guests of the EU family. Lai Jian looks around and thinks that after sensing the breath, there was indeed an immortal cultivator's relic nearby. Gu Chanju tells the hall master that according to the conditions discussed earlier, he and his sister will engage in a duel to the death. Does he mind if Master Lai enters this place? Xiangnan says he can go if he wants. He is about to drink his wine and says that, however, they should not blame him for not reminding him. No one has ever left this place alive. If something happens, he will bear the consequences. In any case, he just needs to let the Gu family's brother and sister engage in a life and death struggle, increase his gambling, and let him make a sure profit without losing any money. Gu Chanren is worried about his words and asks his benefactor brother, "It seems very dangerous there. Does he really want to go there?" Lai Jian closed his eyes, and she asks why her brother Virtue closes his eyes. He concentrates and sees huge statues that are in the dungeon. He wonders if this is actually an insidious formation stealing souls. This formation takes away the souls of intruders, and he should not enter rashly. Lai Jian says that they need to prepare a place for him first, and later he will go to the ruins. Gu Chanju asks if the benefactor wants to watch their match first. He and Gu Chanren wonder if the master wants to check their results after receiving recommendations. It turns out their benefactor cares about them very much. They both tell Master Benefactor that they will definitely perform well. Lai Jian thinks that first, he needs to unravel the formation outside the ruins. After some time in the death arena, people sitting in the stands look at the fight with joyful expressions on their faces and shout loudly. One of the spectators loudly says that he should kill him, because he bet that he would win. Lai Jian sits in the front row and thinks that in the old days, it was not uncommon for immortal cultivators to fight to the death, and the people in this realm actually enjoyed watching this scene. What a nice breakup. Although the insidious soul-stealing formation takes the souls of intruders, this formation is flawed and has no effect on the remnant souls. He releases his energy and thinks that if he enters with only a part of his soul, then he can escape the influence of the formation. It is necessary that he simply be allowed to separate part of the soul to destroy this formation. He directs his energy flow down underground. Under the death arena, the Black Raven, in the ruins of the immortal cultivator. The stream of energy that Lai Jian released made its way inside. He created his body from this energy and thinks that immortal cultivators usually build ruins in places with abundant spiritual power to ensure that the formations and restrictions in the ruins can persist for a long time. The eyes of the statue behind him light up, but Lai Jian does not pay attention to this and wonders why the spiritual power of this relic is so complex. The statue attacks him, but he manages to dodge the attack at the last second. He looks at the many animated statues and thinks that he had long expected that the cultivators would use the remnants of the soul to infiltrate the ruins, so he set the Soul Eater demon to ambush them. The habits of the owner of these ruins are very similar to the habits of the Blood Soul sect in the old days. He touches his forehead and asks how dare he, just a little demon, create trouble in front of his eyes. He uses the Tenki breaking technique and releases a strong energy that pushes away all the statues that were in these ruins. Lai Jian flies further and thinks that all these low-level magic weapons, it seems that what he wants is even deeper. He hears a loud sound that attracts his attention. He is attacked by a demon with 3 eyes and he wonders, is this a beast that devours souls? At the same time in the arena of death, the man tells his brother that these are people from the Gu family. If something happens to them, will their family let them go? Another man asks why he is panicking. Life and death in the death arena are vain, and they deserve to give up their lives. He pulls his sword from behind his back and says that they have fought to the death so many times and never gave up. They just need to do this, and it will all be over. Let those spoiled rich kids regret it in their graves. Gu Tianren tells his brother that these 2 people look very fierce. Gu Tianju says that she needn't be afraid. They have accepted the master's guidance, and it will be easy to defeat them. The referee announces that the game has begun, and he immediately rushes to attack, creating fire on his hands. Gu Tianren stands behind him and releases large ice crystals. Gu Tianju attacks the man with a sword and says that he should look at this. He uses the traceless fire technique. The man uses the flash mob technique and asks, with the skill of this 3-legged cat, does he still want to fight him? Gu Tianju is a little surprised by this and thinks that he is so fast that it seems like a superpower of speed. He looks to the side and thinks that he will attack from there. He manages to dodge a very fast attack from a man who tried to surprise him. Gu Tianju kicks him, but it turns out to be an illusion and his leg goes right through. The man was behind him, collected his energy in his hand, and said that the movements of a non-professional are visible at first sight. He releases dark energy into his opponent's eyes and says that he should try this trick. Gu Tianju is surprised by this and realizes that he cannot see him. The man stabs him from behind and says he should eat his knife. Gu Tianren notices that her older brother was injured and calls out to him loudly. The second man uses the super stone transportation skill on her and tells her that she should worry more about herself. The stone he fired hit Gu Tianren and she screamed in pain. The people watching this fight rejoice and say loudly that they should just let him say that the Gu family's brother and sister are not good enough. They should hurry up and cut off the legs of this young master from the Gu family. Their rewards are irreplaceable. This eldest lady is quite good. He knows what everyone likes to look at, right? The old man sitting next to Lai Jian asks why the 2 children from the Gu family are not studying well. They just joined in the fun in such a place, and now they will lose their lives. Lai Jian looks at this fight calmly and thinks that the outcome will be decided very soon. The man with the sword stands over the brother and sister from the Gu family and tells the arrogant and ignorant rich young master that it is all over because his sword is stained with poison. He need not worry, they will treat his sister well. Gu Tianju's body begins to emit fiery energy, and he says that if it was him before, he really wouldn't be able to change the situation. The man asks, what is he even talking about? Gu Tianju was able to get up, releases his energy, and says that, however, under the guidance of the master, he became a different person. He uses the burst skill and releases a wave of fire along the ground at his opponent. The man bursts into flames and asks loudly whether he was poisoned. Why can he still move? Gu Tianju looks at him and says that cheap poison bought on the black market will not harm him. He thinks that his traceless fire is now not harming him, and it can also remove the toxins that are entering his body. He is grateful to the master for his kindness. The man managing the stones turns to the burning man and calls out to his older brother. Because he was distracted, he did not notice that he was encased in ice. The man looks at Gu Tianren, who has shackled him in ice, and asks what's going on. Why can't she run out of superpowers in her body? She creates a sword from ice and thinks that this delicious smell constantly replenishes her body's superpowers. The brothers who fought against them look at them as they are about to attack them and say that they must stop. They admit defeat. The brother and sister from the Gu family emerged victorious in this battle. The referee announces this, and all the spectators except Lai Jian were shocked by this outcome of the fight. Viewers say he has lost everything. These two guys named Mo are real trash. When did the rich kids on Earth become so powerful? Seeing brother and sister Gu's high odds, he placed a bet and, to his surprise, won. Now he can pay off all his debts. The brother and sister from the Gu family approached Lai Jian, and she asked the benefactor brother, how did they perform just now? He closed his eyes and says there is nothing positive to say. Gu Qianju apologizes to the master for letting him down. Lai Jian looks at them and says that, however, it was not unbearable. If they work hard to improve themselves in the future, then they can still make a difference. Rejoicing at this, they agree and say that they will work hard in the future. Xiangnan approaches them and tells Miss Gu and Master Gu that he congratulates them both for winning this battle. The two's performance in the death duel just now was particularly amazing. Their control over superpowers was so perfect that he even had a desire to play. Gu Qianju tells this master that he shouldn't bother with polite words. Now it's time for them to go to that place. Xiangnan says he needn't worry. He will definitely fulfill his promise. However, now the Red Ring member wanted to test Master Lai, so this whole thing might have to be put on hold. Gu Qianju got angry and tells this master that they kept their promise and took part in a duel to the death. Why should they let their master fight in the arena? Xiangnan says that there are rules in the Black Crow Death Arena. The opponent marked with a red ring must accept the challenge, otherwise he will be banned from entering the Black Crow Death Arena for life. If he breaks the rule, he won't be able to explain it to his superiors, so he would like to ask Master Lai for a small favor. Lai Jian stands up and says there is no problem. Gu Qianju is outraged by this and wants to object, but stops. Lai Jian says that opportunities are rare, and how much they can realize depends entirely on their fate. Gu Qianju bows to him and says that they will carefully watch his battle and learn from it. Gu Qianren also bows and tells his benefactor that he should continue. Some time later, someone says that after putting on the bracelet, you need to go through the door for testing. Lai Jian does as he was told and walks through the door. He looks at the bracelet on his hand and thinks that the magic weapon used to suppress cultivation has really weak internal magic. The employee of this arena looks at the monitor and says that something is strange. This child's strength is clearly much greater than someone with powers, but he is not a manipulator, and they cannot detect any superpowers. What is he anyway? No matter what, this child will not be able to survive this battle to the death. The screen says that this is Lai Jian, a level 9 ability user. The man says that his opponent is a blood demon after all. He can feel free to enter. Lai Jian does so and goes to the gate leading to the arena. The referee asks the dear spectators, are they excited? The show has just begun. Next up is newcomer Lai Jian, who is participating in a death match for the first time. And his opponent has a lot of experience. He is the best Red Ring competitor in their death arena, the Black Crow in Kanking City, the Bloody Demon. Luoshin, who performs under this pseudonym, entered the arena and smiled evilly. The spectators loudly say that this master must quickly kill this ungrateful little man. They all count on him. The crowds of people watching this battle loudly chant his name. Luoshin releases the blood from his hand and tells this guy that they have met again. He told him that this is not the end. The referee announces the start of the game, and he immediately releases a wave of his blood at his opponent and says that he would like to see how much power he has to be so unbridled. Lai Jian uses a barrier around himself to protect himself from the wave of blood and thinks that the internal spiritual power flowing into the blood will cause an explosion. If it weren't limited by the bracelet, it could instantly break through the innate Dao body's defenses. Luoshin thinks about it, so he has defensive type abilities. He releases another wave of blood and says loudly that he wants to see how long he can block it. Lai Jian calmly walks towards him, taking each of his attacks with his barrier. He stomps his foot, throwing rocks into the air, and says that he is using the Lingyu sword technique, second style. He controls several large stones into the air and uses the Bihua Yuyuan breathing technique. He launches these stones and was able to injure Luoshin's hand. He was surprised by this and wondered, can he control stones? This guy actually has a lot of superpowers. It's pretty impressive. He releases a wave of blood in front of him to stop the rocks that fly towards him. He is very surprised when he notices Lai Jian, who attacked him from the side and is about to strike with a sword. His blow was so strong that he pushed Luoshan away and broke that stone sword. Flying across the entire arena, he crashed into the wall with a loud crash. The spectators who support him tell the master that he must stand up. He woke up. Why was he knocked down by this newcomer? He should kill him faster. Luoshan tells this boy that he must admit that he underestimated him before. He concentrates his power in his hands, causing many cracks to appear on the ground. He picks up a large stone slab and says that he should try this trick. He throws it at Lai Jian, who stands calmly, protecting himself with a barrier. He is surprised when he notices that spikes made from the blood of his opponent are emerging from the cracks in the stone. The stone breaks and many bloody spikes fly in different directions, causing damage to the barrier. Lai Jian removed his barrier, leaving a small cut on his face and saying that it was not bad. He thinks that discovering a method of penetrating the body's natural defenses in a short period of time deserves praise as a minor superpower. Luoshan asks if he doubts his ability to become a competitive Red Ring player with this level of skill. He is the invincible king in this arena, the bloody demon. He can use the blood he has shed. Lai Jian notices that the blood from his wound is starting to rise up. Unexpectedly, this blood flowing out of the wound explodes violently next to him. Brother and sister Gu are frightened by what happened and call their brother a virtue and a master. The audience laughs and says that Master Xiangnan is still amazing. This game is really exciting. This child's brain was probably blown to pieces. A death match is a death match. That's what makes it interesting. Gu Qianju grabbed his head and said that it's all over. Something happened to the master. If only he had known before, he would not have led the master to the arena of death. How can he explain this to his grandfather now? Gu Chenren tells his brother that he doesn't have to worry, their benefactor will be fine. Luoshan, with a serious face, wonders why there was no announcement about the end of the game on the broadcast. Lai Jian walks towards him with ruined clothes and says that he is much stronger than he thought. Luoshan was very surprised when he saw him and says that this is impossible. How could he survive? Lai Jian says that if it had been anyone else, he would probably have died from his attack. It's a pity that it was he who turned out to be his opponent. Luoshan thinks that there is even more blood on his face. It seems that he will not survive this time. He clenches his fist and says he will try again. He does not have time to do anything because small objects fall into his acupuncture points, and this greatly surprises him. Luoshan tries to move, but he can't, and he wonders what's going on. The superpower in his body can no longer be used. Lai Jian wipes his face and says that the time has come. He channels his energy with his fingers and uses Juzu. Using this technique, he releases a strong stream of energy that pierces Luoshan and throws him back. He flew back several meters and fell to the ground, his pupils disappearing. The audience was shocked by what happened and asked what just happened. Why did Master Luoshan suddenly lose consciousness? The referee says that the outcome has been decided and the winner of this battle to the death is Lai Jian. At this time, he walks away from his defeated opponent and thinks that he has regained a little of the feeling that he is fighting to the death with another cultivator. He leaves the arena and thinks that now it's time to go to the ruins. The upset spectators say that Master Luoshan really lost. He is sure that it's all about him. Who is this guy called Lai Jian? Another rising star appeared in the arena of death, Black Raven. They should keep an eye on the announcements for more exciting developments in the future. A suspicious guy hiding his face takes off his glasses and says that the day of Lai Jian's death has come. Sometime later, Gu's brother and sister tell the benefactor that she was terrified just now. They were both very scared. Fortunately, he is safe. But her benefactor brother is really very formidable. Even a red-faced person can't defeat him. A master deserves to be a master, and in such a situation, if it were him, then most likely he would die. Lai Jian puts on new clothes and says that in the future they will be able to do this too. Gu Chanju says that he will definitely work hard. His sister asks, is it true? Lai Jian thinks that Luoshan is really skillful. His natural Taoist body's defenses had improved greatly after sparring with him. Xiangnan approaches them and tells Master Lai that he is indeed a god. How did he manage to defeat the strongest fighter of the Red Ring in this arena of death? He admires him. Gu Qianju asks the arena master, this time he will refrain from making more excuses, okay? Xiangnan says that of course this will not happen. He points to a patterned wall next to him and says that he will lead them to this place. He removed part of the wall, and looking at the stairs, he says that this place is located below here. After he showed this passage, they all went down the stairs together. Xiangnan apologizes for being so blunt and asks what is the reason they want to visit this place. Gu Qianju says that the master intends to visit this place for personal reasons, so the Death Arena leader should refrain from asking further questions. Xiangnan says that he is not exaggerating when he says that everyone who goes there will die. His little girl Xiang Ying accidentally got in there earlier and fell into a deep sleep similar to a vegetative state. He spent a lot of money to hire countless super doctors, but there was no result. Master Lai has such abilities that he can definitely make a name for himself in the Black Crow Death Arena. If something happens, he will deeply regret it. Lai Jian says his daughter is no longer a problem. Xiangnan was surprised by this and asks why he said this. Suddenly, at the same moment, his phone starts ringing. He answered the call, and someone says that Miss just woke up. Xiangnan was very surprised by this and asked, "Did she wake up? Is Xiang Yang okay?" He looks at him and wonders how he knew. Could it be that he was the one who saved his daughter? Lai Jian says that he already knows where the ruins are, so he doesn't need him to show him the way. He can go and see his daughter. Xiangnan says that he will take his leave now. Once they complete their tasks, he will show them his appreciation and treat them well. Gu Tianren asks how did their benefactor know that his daughter was safe? Could it be that he went to save her? When did it happen? Gu Qianju says that the master has enormous magical power and has his own methods. Sometime later, Luotian came to his senses and, tearing out the Roman 4 attached to his arm, said that it was all because of this Lai Jian. He actually lost to him. The doctor is worried about this and tells the master that he cannot move because his wound has not yet healed. A suspicious man who was on the podium comes into his room and says that it seems they have a common enemy. He takes off his mask and cap and Dongfang Yuanshu asks if he wants to take revenge with him.